A big crash of thunder and lightning happens outside a dark building. Inside, the man watches from above as the storekeeper, who gave a warning, stands below. The storekeeper thought about how fast things moved. He couldn't even react, let alone Ryan. He realized if that scary gargoyle attacked him, he would have been instantly destroyed without a trace. It was over in a flash, like nothing even happened, making the observer feel like he stared right at death. This closeness felt chilly and utterly horrifying. He figured the storekeeper knew about Ryan's disrespect, but didn't want to get his own hands dirty with the mess. Instead, the storekeeper made an excuse to go upstairs and let his gargoyle deal with that clueless guy, a tactic seen as brutal yet elegant, showing contempt for life, just like a black mage. The storekeeper panicked about what to do now, realizing he angered Mr. He worried that if Mr. Lin thought he was involved, asking for help would be impossible, but then Miss Jai looked pale, and Mr. Lin pointed out her expression, asking if she looked scared. Mr. Lin then smiled and told her to relax, saying coming to the shop should be relaxing. He joked by asking if she thought he would eat her, which made Miss Jai look terrified and shout that she was sorry. She was clearly shaken, starting to cry as she held her hands up in distress. Miss Jai quickly apologized, saying her attendant was rude and it was not her intention to bring him here. Mr. Lin felt confused, seeing her even more nervous, wondering if she really thought he ate people, while he himself thought he just cracked a joke. He internally denied that someone as harmless as him could do something cruel, thinking this young lady was just too naive and believed everything she heard. He decided this situation couldn't continue and thought about giving her another round of soul healing, believing she trusted him because of the last session. He then got serious, telling her sorry for the jokes and that he would do his best to help if she had ideas. Miss Jai seemed relieved, thinking he had forgiven him and resolved to be more careful next time. She apologized for troubling him and asked him to recommend a suitable book because her willpower was weak. He brought up Ryan, saying he didn't look right and that it was best not to talk about absolute loyalty. Miss Jai was shocked, asking how that could be, wondering if the loyalty rune was wrong. She explained that white mages use spells for loyalty runes and only they know how to undo them. She realized the person who wrote Ryan's rune was her family's mage, supported by her father, Haywood. If Ryan's rune failed, it meant Haywood was likely breaking runes to betray people, leaving her wondering who she could trust. Mr. Lin told her to only rely on herself, saying people are difficult and one cannot fully expose their heart to anyone. He advised that when she becomes unbreakable like steel, no one can defeat her, and handed her a book titled How the Steel Was Tempered. He hoped whatever she understood from the book, a masterpiece by Nikolai Ostrovsky, would help her, planning to use some quotes to encourage her. He then remembered some key quotes. He quoted, "Man's dearest possession is life, and that it is given only once, so one should live without regret." He continued with the quote about never knowing the burning shame of a mean and petty past, telling her she has her own destiny. Miss Jai stood in the rain, holding the book. She looked closely at the book, Will of Steel, as she realized the words must have a direct effect on the power of the soul, confirming Haywood's rune was broken. Suddenly, Mr. Lin was back in the store, and the perspective shifted to Miss Jai outside, who felt something incredible happen. She felt a stuffed, almost overflowing satisfaction, realizing Mr. Lin gave her a second life. She thought Mr. Lin must be trying to build up his power among the hunters and gradually change the entire ecosystem. She declared that she fully understood his intention and swore absolute loyalty to his will and orders from then on. She offered her body and everything to him, vowing not to let him down again. Back in the store, Mr. He worried if she was becoming a yannier now that she was frequenting his bookstore after being abandoned by that other person. He quickly told himself he shouldn't have such impure thoughts because she was a rich lady who wouldn't prefer someone like him. He decided he should focus on getting more customers instead as he saw her step out into the rain. Outside, a man with white hair and a beard, looking angry, stood in the pouring rain holding a piece of paper. A man, looking like a powerful figure from his glowing aura, checks a map or document, confirming the location of a suspicious bookstore on 23rd Street. He is frustrated, wondering why that old man would visit such a small bookshop, but he knows he cannot miss this chance now that he finally has a lead. The Radiant Knight decides he must check things himself instead of trusting spy rumors, as his duty demands he carry out justice. The powerful knight stands ready to take action as he enters the location. Inside, the bookstore owner, looking calm, is seated, checking out a book he just pulled from the shelf. He admires the book, which is The Little Prince, saying it has great philosophical points and teaches heartwarming and cute lessons. He decides to read this lovely book before sleeping, just as the shop door opens with a loud ding, signaling a new customer. The owner happily greets the new arrival, thinking that previous customer must have been very lucky for him, but then he senses something threatening from the new guest. The imposing, scare-looking man from outside steps fully into the light of the shop. The owner notes the threatening presence of the new customer as the man walks in with a heavy thud. The owner politely welcomes the threatening man, offering him to read, borrow, or purchase any book in the store. The knight looks around, noting the ordinary appearance of the shop and confirms there are no hidden magical fluctuations anywhere else. If the shop is just ordinary, he figures there's no need to ask about the old man he was looking for, as this young man likely knows nothing, but the only odd thing he sees is a gargoyle. The knight suspects the old pest wouldn't gift something like the gargoyle without a deeper meaning, so he directly asks the owner if he is the one in charge of the store. The owner thinks this customer is not very friendly, so he decides to use an endearing term to make him open up, settling on calling him Grandpa. The knight reacts with shock and anger upon being called Grandpa, demanding what the owner meant by that term. The enraged knight threatens to smash the owner's skull if he were anyone else, but stops himself, realizing he shouldn't take his anger out on an ordinary person. The knight slams his hands on the table and angrily asks about the gargoyle, demanding to know if it belongs to the owner, confronting him with a monstrous image. The owner calmly replies that a customer gifted it to him, and it's a souvenir, not for sale. The knight is insulted, saying he wouldn't want to buy a gargoyle made by black mages, especially for a radiant knight like him. The knight warns the owner that he is lucky he hasn't smashed the item yet, and when the owner mentions the giver's name, Frank Wilda, the knight starts thinking hard. The knight wonders if the owner knows old Wilda, and if there's some kind of grudge, feeling something fishy about the old man revealing his real name to this seemingly ordinary person. The knight puzzles over why Wilda would give such a high-level gargoyle to an ordinary person, initially thinking the store was a black mage gathering spot, but now seeing it as just a message exchange point. However, the owner's years of experience in judging people tell him this threatening-looking man is actually not bad, given he hasn't broken anything. The owner concludes that this kind of person shouldn't hold a grudge against a literary student like old Wilda, logically deducing the truth based on the evidence. The owner then asks the knight directly if Mr. Wilda is his friend, which makes the knight react with utter disbelief. The knight clarifies that Wilda is an old comrade he has known for many years. He admits they shared deep experiences, but reveals they had a serious conflict 2 years ago, and he hasn't heard from Wilda since. The knight expresses a strong desire to tear off Wilda's head if he ever finds him, recalling how the pest narrowly escaped death 2 years ago. The owner finds the deep history between the two men very touching, even wiping a fake tear while remembering Wilda's past antics. The owner remarks that it makes sense now why the knight immediately recognized the gargoyle as something belonging to Mr. Wilda. The owner praises their enviable friendship, saying Mr. Wilda will be touched to hear this, and the knight says he hopes so, as he's been looking for him for years. The knight eagerly asks if Wilda left any contact information so he can visit him personally, but the owner sadly replies he doesn't have it. The owner adds that Mr. Wilda borrowed a book a few days ago and should return in a few days, offering to tell him about the knight's visit and inviting him to sit and rest or read. The owner offers the knight some tea, smiling, thinking the knight is finally opening up a little. The knight bristles at the offer of rest, noting that people usually just ask polite but generic questions since he became a radiant knight, but he decides to relax a little. He accepts the tea, saying he isn't tired but has no reason to refuse the insistence for tea. The knight refuses the books, stating he doesn't like reading and has no money, which the owner notices as a sign that the knight is starting to relax. The owner insists the books behind him are free to read, but first offers him a cup of tea. The knight refuses the tea, saying he won't be there long, and clutches his head as his headache gets worse. His attention is drawn to a book on the table titled Seed of the Abyss, which seems to be the cause of his discomfort. The owner, meanwhile, enthusiastically promotes his book, The Little Prince, calling it a relaxing fairy tale that soothes the soul and helps with sleep. The knight scoffs at the idea of a fairy tale, calling it laughably immature for an adult, which makes the owner inwardly question if he is considered old. The owner says it's unfortunate that the knight doesn't appreciate it, claiming it's the best fairy tale he's read and the only copy in Nakan. The knight angrily asks if the owner is sure it's a fairy tale, but the owner insists it's a classic and a good read. The owner happily pushes the little prince toward the knight, telling him to become enamored with this classical fairy tale. As the book is offered, the knight feels a familiar pain and dizziness, realizing it's candela resonating with something. The knight realizes the connection to the word bedtime the owner kept using, and suddenly yells out, shocked by what's happening. The owner is startled by the sudden reaction, but then he pushes the book forward again, insisting the knight should not take it the wrong way. The knight tries to refuse the book, saying he isn't interested in the fairy tale, but he doesn't want to be rude by rejecting what the owner keeps recommending. The owner pushes the book into the knight's hands, saying here, and the knight feels the familiar pain again. A strong force hits the knight as he cries out, what? Upon touching the book, the knight feels the familiar pain and dizziness, recognizing it as candela resonating with something, wondering why now. He remembers the owner kept saying bedtime, making him realize the meaning, and he suddenly worries about the shop owner. The knight tries to stop the negative effect, but it seems too late as the owner's head sinks down, looking completely unconscious. The knight frantically shouts for Grandpa, shocked at what just happened. He checks the owner, wondering if he caught a cold or had a stroke, feeling very concerned. The knight decides he needs to give first aid and call for help. He checks the owner's pulse and breathing, feeling confused by the situation. The knight confirms the owner's breathing and heartbeat are steady, even noting his pulse is healthier than his own was in his prime, calling him impressive. He is puzzled why the owner suddenly passed out, wondering if it was related to his book, The Little Prince, which seems illogical. The knight sighs, thinking he can't help the situation since the man passed out right there in his store. The owner plans to make the unconscious man comfortable and then ask him what happened when he wake up. The man was struggling hard, breathing heavily as he tried to hold up another person. He was surprised by the sheer weight of the man he was carrying. He looked down at the unconscious man, feeling the immense difficulty of the situation. He panted, realizing just how heavy the fallen customer was. It was like carrying a big, strong bear. The man's face was scrunched up in effort, and for a moment, the unconscious man seemed to transform into something fierce, roaring with rage. The shopkeeper thought that this customer was incredibly muscular. He wished the man was much thinner, like old Wilda, to make moving him easier. He wondered what to do now, wishing another customer was around to help lift this heavy fellow. Since it was bad weather, he knew no one else would be shopping, so he apologized in his mind before starting to move him. He started dragging the man, getting a glimpse of his clothing while he worked on moving the heavy body. The perspective shifts to show the heavy man being dragged, revealing his mechanical arm attachment. A small black cat crept silently by as the man was being dragged across the wooden floor. The man was finally pulled onto what looked like a makeshift stretcher, letting out a strained sound. As he looked closely at the arm, he noticed the metallic part and wondered if this man was handicapped, just like old Wilda. He saw the intricate details of the mechanical arm. The shopkeeper wondered if the man was disabled because of the complex mechanical arm. He realized that such a detailed arm could not be easily operated by a normal person. Considering the man's unexpected strong build and his commanding voice, the shopkeeper started to form a big idea in his head. He suddenly suspected that the unconscious man might be a retired high-ranking military officer. He felt the man had a similar strong presence to other retired officers he had met. The shopkeeper observed the guarded nature and visible mental tiredness of the man, thinking it pointed toward PTSD. He also thought about how the man must view his lost arm as a reminder of a past fight. He concluded that old, stubborn people like this often acted arrogant. He then focused back on the mechanical arm and the possibility of an electric shock. The shopkeeper understood the problem. Mechanical arm joints often short-circuit when metal touches moisture, which was happening now because of the rain. He looked outside at the falling rain. He assumed the man fainted from a sudden electric shock, which would be bad for his nerves if it happened often. He then looked at the still, unconscious man. As he stood there, the shopkeeper realized the entire scene looked very strange when viewed from this angle. He started imagining that he looked like a serial killer dragging a victim in the middle of the night to do awful things. The shopkeeper quickly tried to shake off this dark thought. He told himself not to let his imagination go too far, reminding himself that he, Lin Jai, was an upright person, and no one would suspect him of such things. In his mind, two tiny versions of himself panicked about the misunderstanding. The little black cat peeked around the corner, looking very shocked by the sight it was witnessing. Lin Jai strongly affirmed his good character to himself. He looked down at the man again and noticed the blue book held tightly in the man's hand, even while he was unconscious. The shopkeeper observed how tightly the man gripped the book, thinking the old man really liked that book. He smiled slightly, calling the man a stubborn old man. Standing over the man, he gently wished the hardened veteran sweet dreams, saying, "Sleep well." Suddenly, Lin Jai heard a noise outside and snapped his attention toward the door. He asked if someone was outside, and the shadow of a small creature moved near the door crack. Lin Jai stepped out into the pouring rain, looking concerned as he surveyed the street. As he looked out, he saw the little black cat meowing outside in the heavy rain. He sighed, realizing it was only a cat, and told it to hurry home because it was dangerous outside in that weather. Far away, the cat was running frantically, crying out "damn it" repeatedly as the rain lashed down around the tall buildings. The cat was shocked and panting, wondering how things had turned out this way, as it slipped on the wet cobblestones. Cat kept struggling through the water, panting hard, looking increasingly panicked. The cat then seemed to realize something, shouting about dispel and shapeshifting magic as a dark figure swooshed down. A shadowy, demonic-looking cat figure appeared above the frightened black cat. The black cat was left wondering how this situation had escalated so badly. The scene suddenly switches to introduce Morrison Gregg from the Secret Instrument Tower's Intelligence and Reconnaissance Bureau. As Sir Joseph's biggest fan, he had worked hard to join the Bureau just to be near him. He remembered knowing all about the history between Radiant Knight Joseph and Black Mage Wilda. He followed his idol into the bookshop, expecting everything to be fine. The cat, apparently Morrison Gregg in disguise, thought nothing would go wrong in this seemingly normal bookshop. After waiting 10 minutes, he decided to peek inside, thinking he just wanted to see his hero. The cat was concerned about why Sir Joseph was taking so long and decided to peek in, insisting it wasn't because he wanted to see Joseph's heroic figure. He saw the old man fall over and reacted with shock, wondering what the heck just happened to Sir Joseph. The cat was completely stunned that someone was passed out after just happily chatting moments before. He wondered just how strong that young man was. The cat then worried if the young man used some evil black magic. He recalled the words Lin Jai said about sweet dreams for a hardened veteran. The cat saw Lin Jai standing near the window, looking calm and saying, "Sleep well." The cat seemed to panic, thinking if the young man was sending some invincible sacred flame into Joseph for eternal slumber. The cat thought Lin Jai succeeded, but then panicked when he thought Lin Jai noticed him, wanting to run away immediately. The cat realized he couldn't fight the young man and was scared, as Lin Jai stood at the doorway telling him it was dangerous outside. Lin Jai smiled calmly and told the cat to hurry home, while the cat outside huddled, feeling like he almost died. Morrison Gregg, the cat, thought about how Joseph could have easily captured him but let him go, possibly wanting him to report back. He resolved that he must go back and report this. The cat, now looking back at the shop, worried that Joseph had only been working there for a year, but now had this important mission. The cat felt he had to follow Joseph. The scene shifts to the old man, who wakes up groaning, wondering where he is. He looked around the blue, watery space and realized he was stuck in another cursed illusion by Candela, but then paused, confused. The man questioned why he felt no pain this time. He then saw a vision of a formidable-looking figure and recalled the words, "When you gaze into the abyss also gazes into you." The vision continued, stating the abyss recognizes one of its own as dark energy poured from an open book. The man realized these were the words from that fairy tale. The man cried out in overwhelming confusion as words flooded his head, begging for it to stop because it was too much. Amidst the chaos, a strong, happy feeling surfaced, and an image of a powerful, glowing figure appeared above the book. The figure declared, "To finally meet you," as massive columns of light and dark energy surged around the book. The man wondered if the pain was slowly fading as he saw a glowing sword rise from the book, surrounded by dark tendrils. He questioned if the figure was Candela and felt a movement in his mechanical arm. He then saw an image of a shining knight with a glowing sword. The knight stood bathed in light, holding the sword, and the man thought fairy tales are definitely just for kids. With a determined look in his eye, a close-up on the knight's hand gripping the sword, with long golden hair flowing around them. The knight insisted that fairy tales are only for children, just as an exclamation mark appeared near the man's head, showing a sudden realization. The old man stood up, holding the book tightly in his hand, looking much more alert now. He stood silently for a moment, still holding the book, with a thoughtful expression. The old man was now standing, and Lin Jai, appearing behind him, exclaimed happily, "Oh, Grandpa, you're awake!" Lin Jai smiled widely with relief and joy as the old man looked up, still catching his breath. The old man, now fully awake and looking less stressed, managed a thankful expression toward Lin Jai. This image displayed an announcement stating that this chapter covered novel chapters 16-18 and provided a link to read more. The man thanks the bookstore owner, who assures him not to worry about it. The owner checks on the older man, asking how he feels now that he has something in his hands. The older man replies that he feels great, even better than before, showing his excitement. The owner thinks to himself that with such a strong physique, no one would doubt this man is a retired military officer, and praises his own skill in judging people. He also thinks about how strong this man is, noting that if he punched the ragged old wilder, half his body might fly off, and thankfully, they are friends. The older man apologizes for taking the hospitality and causing trouble, but the owner smiles and says it is fine, as he told Mr. Wilder the same thing. The owner explains it is natural to help customers to the best of his ability, which makes the older man think he finally understands the owner's care-free attitude. He realizes that the owner means he will help any customer, no matter who they are, just by stepping into the bookstore. The owner's unwavering kindness and ideal to help everyone reminds the older man of only one other group, elves, an ancient and long-lived race, who are elegant and knowledgeable. The older man thinks that everything would make sense if the bookstore owner was an elf, because living so long makes one abandon good and evil to help everyone. This warm and polite attitude shows refinement only achieved over countless years, and the owner probably opened a bookstore because of the knowledge elves possess, as humans don't care for books anymore. The narration shifts to ancient legends telling of Candela, the prince of the ancient elven kingdom, who later became the Moon King of the elves. Candela was also known as the source of the plague and the first to lose his mind, and in despair, he killed himself with his own sword, which sealed his soul. That sealed soul then turned into a curse, making the long sword, which shared the king's name, into a crazed magic sword. Afterwards, anyone wielding the sword would lose their mind and eventually die, making the older man feel that before today, there was little hope for him. But this book was able to calm down Candela, which makes the older man think that only an elf could own such a book, and if so, they must be incredibly old. To maintain such longevity, the elf must use all their magic, meaning they should have no magic fluctuations, which the owner confirmed, making everything click for the older man. The older man asks if he can still borrow the book, even though the owner said it was the only copy and that he really liked it, making the owner seem like he is covering up his soft side. The owner happily agrees, saying he wouldn't have recommended it if it wasn't available, and then points out that, like a child, the older man likes validation. The owner explains that he knew the book suited the older man from the start, as many people suffer pain and regret from turmoil within, making them feel inadequate and leading to insanity. The owner sighs, saying those who have seen bloodshed on the battlefield are always regretting their wrongdoings and can never let go of their past, and the effects of these battles leave a mark that torments them forever. The owner tells him that what truly defeats them is not the pain, but their weakening kindness, which makes the older man think of kindness. The older man remembers witnessing two previous wielders succumb to feelings of inadequacy and asks if it is wrong to be kind. The owner clarifies that kindness is fine, but the key word is weakness, because people have high expectations and a high sense of responsibility. They want to give others reliability and support to hide their own weakness, but this guardedness is the greatest weakness, saving others but not themselves. As soon as their spirit collapses, they become susceptible to everything, so the owner advises that it's fine to not be invincible heroes sometimes, and that being a normal person without worry also takes bravery. The owner is secretly delighted, thinking his words will surely reach the man. The older man suddenly understands, exclaiming that the sword doesn't drive people insane, but rather the corruption caused by the pursuit of perfection, and wonders why no one noticed this before. He then asks how long the calming effect will last, to which the owner laughs, saying it won't last long because if fairy tales were that effective, there would be no need for psychologists. The owner then states that while it won't be calm for long, he can guarantee a lasting result if he handles it, and that he can secure a repeat customer who needs therapy. The older man is shocked and asks what the owner means, wondering if the shop owner wants to take on the burden of Candela's curse. The owner then mentions Joseph, the ex-radiant knight, who has been wielding Candela the longest, but the older man scoffs, saying that is probably because Joseph was already drowning in his failures before the sword could corrupt him. He laughs, thinking that maybe Joseph retired so the sword could find its rightful wielder. Joseph, the older man, pauses, seemingly considering the weight of his past actions, then concludes that maybe he retired so that the sword could find the right person to wield it. The bookstore owner asks if Joseph is certain, as it's not a simple matter, noting how much Joseph and Wilda seem to care for others, which the owner finds amazing. The owner reassures him that it will be fine because he is a professional life coach, and asks if Joseph is barely able to hold on right now. The owner then generously offers to gift the book to Joseph, saying he and his heroic comrades deserve to rest after carrying burdens for so long. Joseph is moved by this selflessness and grace, thinking that such kindness can only be achieved by those with long lives. Joseph insists there is no need to rest, as he will rest when there is peace in the world, but then asks to borrow the book for a few days to think about everything. The owner agrees, saying he will see him back in a week and simply asks him to register his contact details for lending. The owner sighs, feeling that Joseph's exaggerated sense of justice is the real source of his great pain, and happily realizes he has gained another customer. Joseph signs the lending form, noting that this is a real bookstore, and agrees to meet again in a week. As Joseph leaves, he thinks he has no more regrets, and the only thing left is to deliver justice, meaning Wilda will die by his hands regardless of the bookshop owner's help. The bookstore owner, with glowing eyes, observes Joseph leaving, thinking that this was only possible thanks to Mr. Len, and he has prepared a present for him. The narrative briefly shifts focus to another character who is feeling overwhelmed and euphoric from some knowledge. This character finds the knowledge they are receiving both wild and terrifying, yet incredibly rational, and thinks it's time for the black-scaled faceless to reappear in Nakan. If the devil's cult's death ghouls is just a fraction of the bigger picture, this terrifying lost civilization will finally be revealed. The character is captivated by the greatness of this revelation. He confirms that this was only possible thanks to Mr. Len, and he has prepared a present that he is sure Mr. Someone was shocked to hear that the teacher was inside the bookstore. This person realized that if even the teacher could not handle the situation, they could not act carelessly. The character realizes that even their teacher fainted just from seeing someone in the bookstore. This shocking turn of events makes them question how such a thing could happen. The person decided that if even teacher could not handle the situation, acting rashly would be unwise. He worried that more losses could lead to a devastating result. The ringing device on the desk signaled an incoming call, making the person wonder if it was from the team looking into the strange bookstore. Upon answering, they demanded to know the situation immediately. A voice urgently demanded to know the current situation. Then, someone ordered that all investigators on 23rd Street must immediately return. The person on the phone was shocked to hear that teacher was coming out of the bookstore. They quickly realized that if even teacher could not handle the situation, acting rashly would be a disaster. Someone sees the name Claude and Fossil displayed on a handheld device with a small drip sound nearby. This must be an important contact or status update for the person holding the device. The subordinate nervously replied to the teacher, who was clearly agitated and demanding to know the situation. The teacher then gave a direct order to immediately recall all investigators from 23rd Street. The person on the line ordered the immediate recall of all investigators from 23rd Street. He was clearly upset, demanding to know the situation at the bookstore. The man tells his subordinate to classify the bookstore as something specific. He seems very serious about this classification in the pouring rain. The person speaking on the phone was clearly upset, declaring the area a top-secret class I zone. This level of secrecy made the listener very nervous about the unfolding situation. The investigator noted that the classification for the bookstore situation was a WDI standing for abnormal, panicky, destructive, and indescribable. This shocking finding made the person wonder what was truly going on with the bookstore owner. The document described the situation as abnormal, panicky, destructive, and indescribable. This led to the realization that the situation was an indescribable class, prompting someone to ask the teacher what was happening. The person who was knocked out by looking at the teacher was clearly shocked by what happened. They realized that if even the teacher could not handle the situation, they should not act too quickly to avoid huge losses. The stern-looking man seemed to be looking down intently at two black cats that were glowing with blue energy on a tiled roof. He appeared quite serious as he observed the situation unfolding before him. A person surrounded by a blue glow asked if there was anyone with a character in front of them. This character was now focused on a classified file, believing it would keep others away from the bookstore. The person on the phone confirmed that the situation was over, noting that the teacher sounded quite angry. They decided to send the recall order for all investigators on 23rd Street immediately. The person apologized to the teacher for being careless as they appeared to have accidentally broken something involving a small cat. The sudden noise and the apology suggest something unexpected just happened to the small animal. The person in charge sternly told the speaker to stop talking and just do their assigned job. He then threatened to send the person to the Northern Highlands to grow potatoes if they did not comply. The person says that the teacher sounds okay and has not changed at all, even though he looks terrifying when angry. Despite the scary appearance, the teacher does not hold grudges if his orders are followed exactly. He thought that even though the teacher looks scary when angry, he does not hold a grudge if his orders are followed exactly. This described the character of the respected teacher, Mr. Joseph, the sharp-tongued, soft-hearted, righteous radiant knight. The investigator thought the teacher still seemed the same, even if he looked scary when angry and wanted to hurt someone. He also knew that the teacher would not hold a grudge if his exact orders were followed. The person on the phone finishes giving all the information they have about their respected teacher, Mr. Joseph. They then state that this is everything they know about this situation. Someone reported that the teacher, Joseph, requested a new file, and the person speaking was sure the elders would approve it. The other person agreed to create the new file and said thank you. The person holding the file confirmed to the teacher that a new blank class I file was ready. The teacher responded with a simple good as someone stepped into the room. Claude did a good job, earning praise from the imposing figure who looked back at him. The teacher asked Claude who was with him before and reminded him to use the forget rune on that person. Claude then introduced Morrison Gregg, an investigator from a mage family skilled in shapeshifting, who was also a huge fan of the teacher. Someone forgot something important while holding a Diz-looking cat. The person then introduced the investigator named Morrison Gregg, noting his talent in shapeshifting from a mage family. Claude told the teacher that the investigator, Morrison Gregg, was a talented shapeshifter from a mage family who was also a huge fan. This fan had spent around 3 million in various fundraisers for the undefeatable Sacred Flame every year, even inscribing the teacher's name in gold. The person finishes explaining the fan's extreme devotion, mentioning the incident where he inscribed the teacher's name in gold last year. They conclude by saying one could consider this investigator a hardcore fan of the teacher. The person asked if the other person truly did that incredible thing. A mechanical hand lightly tapped on the keyboard in response to the question. The teacher asked Claude if it was true that mage families were very rich. Claude confirmed this fact to the teacher. The teacher wondered why the fan spent money on meaningless fan club things instead of giving it directly to his idol. He decided he would take the fan in as an apprentice knight to get close to him, which would also save the cost of a memory wipe later. The man in glasses was shocked to hear that the fee would be for close contact and that the Radiant Knight would be happy about it. He could not believe how despicable, greedy, and wicked a Radiant Knight could be. Someone exclaimed that the teacher even wanted to take a child's money. The other person quickly agreed that it would happen right away, which would save the cost of wiping someone's memory. The person looking at the screen received information about the bookstore at 412 23rd Street, noting its class size status and that contact was ill-advised. The security level was marked as top secret with tailing currently in progress. A description appears on the screen, noting that the bookstore owner seems to be a long-term hermit and that the books hold mysterious and immense powers. A robotic hand is shown typing on a keyboard, accessing this information. He thought this classified file would be enough to scare everyone away from the bookstore. If anyone still went after seeing this, he wished them luck. A person shouts from behind the curtains, insisting that they are fine and asking who claimed they were dead. The man yelled in frustration, wondering why the file had not been uploaded yet. He then angrily demanded to know if the person he was talking to was blind. The man quickly hung up the phone after yelling at the caller, relieved that his sword's mood was still calm. He noted with satisfaction that the book seemed to have no negative effect on his emotional state. The man observed the book, noting that it seemed to have no negative effect on his current mood. Then he heard a sudden ringing sound. The person was angry about being interrupted, mentioning that a new labor law means they should get a raise and compensation. They then told Melissa to remember to drink her milk. A man in a light shirt reminds Melissa to drink her milk, even though she argues she is no longer a child. He tells her this is not about growing taller, but about finding a husband someday. The girl responded to her father, saying she already knew and was not a child anymore. She insisted she was already an abnormal level combat knight trainee. Melissa protested that she was already an abnormal level combat knight captain, not a child anymore. Her mother insisted she still needed to drink her milk if she wanted to get married someday. Someone questioned if the advice about drinking milk was just to help the child grow taller, but the speaker insisted it was about marriage prospects. The other person, an abnormal level combat knight, seemed annoyed by the constant reminders. Someone was hit in the face with a slap, causing them to make a sputtering noise. That person then angrily thought that the relic only cared about muscles and had no brain. The girl in the strawberry dress looked surprised as she wondered if what she saw was a book. She had just accessed a highly restricted file using her deceased mother's credentials. The person wonders why someone with a muscle brain would read such a thing. They also note that they have never seen this particular book before. The person with long pink hair quickly flipped a page in the book while sitting at a table with a glass of milk. They seemed very focused on what they were reading, perhaps concerned about the story's outcome. Someone quickly turned the pages of the book with intense focus, their wide, blue eyes showing deep concentration. They were clearly eager to see what happened next in the story they were reading. The glowing purple eye suggests some intense magical reaction or power surge is happening. The sounds of flipping indicate rapid page turning, possibly from a book or some intense action. The person wearing bunny slippers angrily demanded if anyone else could defeat the shopkeeper that easily, promising a classified file to anyone who could. He warned the others not to try anything stupid and insisted he would not rescue them if something went wrong. Someone tells the others not to do anything stupid and to be respectful. This person also makes it clear that they will not save any of the morons if something bad happens. A loud bang made the person in the strawberry patterned pajamas jump, looking very startled. They realized something serious was happening with the teacher inside the bookstore. The girl, wearing a strawberry patterned nightgown, slammed a book shut on the table in frustration. Below her, a man wearing a light pink jacket with a bunny design on the back looked on with intense speed lines surrounding him. The person in the bunny outfit addresses the girl, calling her Melissa. Melissa looks worried as the man speaks to her. The person in the strawberry top could only say no, struggling with what to say next. The man below him, looking sparkly, simply told the person to remember something. The man in the light suit holds out a glass to the red-haired person while showing a robotic hand. He seems to be offering something important to the person standing before him. A person with long pink hair, wearing a strawberry patterned top, suddenly appeared with a strange, intense look. Then, a loud bang sounded as something or someone struck the door hard. The man wonders if that kid is going through some kind of rebellious phase. He holds a cup and appears deep in thought about the situation. The man thought that it did not matter what the situation was, as long as the girl was growing up healthy. He looked down happily at the smiling woman and the small child whose head he was gently patting. The person wondered who wrote that amazing book and if the main character could be the former elf King Candela. The stories seemed so splendid and real, making the reader eager to find out what happens next. She was relieved but then wondered why those stories felt so real, realizing with frustration that the most important part of the book was still unfinished. She groaned loudly, wanting so much to know what happened next. She admitted that she was being unfair for judging the person based on the kind of book they were reading. She then remembered something she heard him say. The young woman, lounging in bed wearing strawberry pajamas, recalled someone mentioning that the book came from a very secret bookstore. She quickly dismissed the thought, believing it was just an ordinary book. She thought that powerful older people would not linger in a place like a bookstore. Then, she used a database key with Class I access, which worked by using her deceased mother's permissions. A glowing key appears in a hand, and then a digital interface flashes with a swoosh sound. Access is gained to the bookstore's file using a deceased mother's authorization as a radiant knight. She found that using her deceased mother's access was enough to get through the system. The girl thanked her mother, knowing she was once one of the powerful radiant knights. After finding the bookstore's details labeled as Class I and linked to Joseph, the person states that it was not very impressive after all. With the information gathered, the person decides that they can simply go to the bookstore and have a look around. The young girl decided that if the bookstore was not impressive, she could just go and see it for herself. She thought that this would surely make things grow, right? The woman in the strawberry pajamas let out a dissatisfied sound. She seemed annoyed about something that had just happened or been said. Someone urgently grabbed a glass of milk and quickly drank it all down. The person, wearing a strawberry patterned top, quickly gulped the entire drink. The girl in the strawberry pajamas wonders if she will grow bigger. She seems worried about being flat, adding a small comment about flat as justice. The city was facing a major problem with heavy rain that had been going on for over a week and was getting much stronger. The authorities had even closed the lower roads because of the water. Experts warned that if the rain didn't stop soon, a big part of the city would get completely flooded as the rain was coming from the cold air up in the northern mountains. Inside, a man was busy cleaning up the mess, saying that this heavy rain had been going on for too long and was only getting worse. He was mopping the water from the floor, thinking he might need a boat if this kept up, splashing the dirty water around. He sighed, feeling tired, and thought that normal life was hard enough without this terrible weather making everything difficult. When he saw the whole ground floor flooded that morning, he almost thought about leaving his place. But he was relieved that at least the books were safe. He was proud of himself for finally cleaning up the tiring mess, making the wooden floor look brand new, feeling very capable. After finishing, he wondered if that little cat he saw earlier had found a safe place to stay, hoping it was okay outside in this bad weather. Meanwhile, someone else, Morrison, was very excited to finally see Sir Joseph's office with his own eyes, feeling the powerful scent everywhere, thinking he was in heaven. The intense rain kept pouring down, making loud noises outside as a neighbor inside struggled with his power. The neighbor got very angry, shouting curses at his TV and the relentless rain because of his trouble. He yelled out, asking for help from anyone, but after checking, he realized the TV and wiring were fine, so the problem must be a tripped fuse. He cursed because the circuit breaker was outside, and he did not want to go out in that terrible rain. He looked out at the pouring rain, feeling annoyed, but then had an idea to ask the guy next door for help. He thought his neighbor was a good guy who liked helping people, and maybe the neighbor would even be thankful for the chance to be useful. He knocked and called out, asking politely if his dear neighbor was around and needed any help. The neighbor responded kindly, asking if he needed anything, and the first man, feeling a bit bold, explained his TV had a circuit issue. Neighbor said he was busy and couldn't leave, asking the other man to check the circuit breaker located behind his shop's back door. The neighbor readily agreed, saying he would go check it out right away. As the neighbor agreed, a sudden electrical sound happened, making the neighbor pause and feel a strange sensation. He felt a chilling presence, and looking outside, he saw a huge, dark shadow with glowing red eyes looming over him, which made him stop in his tracks. The neighbor, Mr. Lin, recognized the shadow creature as Inkai and greeted it happily, asking if it needed more books or came to return some. The shadow entity quickly dashed inside, moving fast through the room. Mr. Lin looked surprised when the shadow seemed to indicate it wanted to help with the outside problem. Mr. Lin found Inkai's politeness very cute, remembering that Inkai had previously said lending books could help, so he thought Inkai showed up to say thanks. He felt he shouldn't refuse the offer since Inkai came all this way to help, so he agreed and thanked Inkai, saying he'd ask for help again next time. Outside in the heavy rain, the dark shadow reached the exterior circuit breaker box on the wall. With a distinct sound, the shadow flipped the switch on the breaker and immediately, a light flickered back on inside. Back inside, a neighbor, who had been holding popcorn, cheered loudly and thanked Mr. Lin profusely. He exclaimed that he would definitely ask for his help again next time, while Mr. Lin simply replied, "You're welcome." As Mr. Lin stood there, a splash of liquid marked where the shadow must have landed back inside, and he told the neighbor, "You're welcome." The neighbor thought about how kind Mr. Lin was and how convenient it was to have such a helpful person next door while enjoying his snack. The neighbor decided to get back to his TV issue, but then got a sudden shock as something buzzed loudly. The neighbor looked terrified, crying out in shock as the TV screen seemed to react violently. The little cat, presumably Morrison, sat watching the terrifying scene on the now flickering TV in the dark room. Loud screams echoed as the rain continued to hammer against the building outside. Mr. Lin, back in his library, felt satisfied, thinking it was just another day of doing a good deed. He held a book and looked around, thinking about how great it would be if the shopkeeper who needed help would now advertise his store for him. Just then, the shop's bell rang, signaling a visitor, and Mr. Lin quickly composed himself, saying welcome. Mr. Lin wondered about the timing of the visitor, thinking that immediately after doing a good deed, a customer arrived. The new visitor was a man with long white hair, wearing a distinctive, almost beast-like mask, holding a hat. The visitor formally addressed Mr. Lin, moving closer. Mr. Lin recognized him as Old Wilda and commented that despite the man's strange mask, his fashion sense was quite good, having an English gentleman feel. Old Wilda looked toward Mr. Lin, confirming that the favors Mr. Old Wilda stated that this time, he wanted to formally thank Mr. Lin for his kindness. Mr. Lin said he was already happy with the gift from last time, but Old Wilda insisted, asking what precious item he brought this time and saying he'd think before accepting. Old Wilda thought the previous gift, a gargoyle, was nothing compared to this new present. He admired Mr. Because of Mr. Lin's assistance, Old Wilda was only one step away from reaching an indescribable level, making this 2-year effort gift worthy of the 2 years of kindness shown to him. Old Wilda urged Mr. Lin not to hesitate, saying the gift wasn't that important to him personally. He insisted it might serve Mr. Lin better and that he would feel terrible if Mr. Lin told old Wilda he didn't expect such a grand item and asked to see what he had prepared first, as he wasn't sure what it was. Old Wilda revealed this present took him 2 years to prepare, hoping Mr. Lin would like the dream catcher that was presented. Mr. Lin recognized the item immediately, asking if it was a dream catcher, looking surprised. He admitted he didn't expect old Wilda to give him something like this, finding it nostalgic from his past life before transmigrating a few years ago. He recalled attending a culture appreciation event. At that event, he learned about the dreamcatcher, which is a cultural symbol of the American Indians. He remembered the legend that they believe the night air is full of dreams, and only the dreamcatcher can filter out the bad ones and keep the good ones. After talking more to an elder, he learned more about its lore. The elder told him the beads of a dreamcatcher gathered strength and intelligence from the sleeper, which could help communication between men and spirits. Mr. Old Wilda confirmed Mr. Lin was very knowledgeable about it. Old Wilda explained that dreamcatchers are rare magic tools, but the real value is in the dream caught inside the net. Judging by the fine details, this one was clearly handmade, and Mr. Lin admitted the recent storm outside was making his sleep poor, making the gift timely. Mr. Lin called it a thoughtful gift, saying it was just what he needed, and thanked old Wilda happily. Old Wilda, looking on, simply replied that it was his honor. Old Wilda warned that the pleasant dream captured inside was second to none, but it also held a terrible danger. Without the willpower of an indescribable being, it would immediately crush one's soul. However, for a powerful person like Mr. Lin, old Wilda concluded that this dream must be a rare joy and enjoyment, wishing him sweet dreams. A large explosion rocked the city buildings under the pouring rain. The hunters realized they were facing magic users when the explosion hit the church structure. The wolf of the silent court's blood was said to fear fire, so they prepared their next attack. They told each other not to be afraid because they knew they could still win this fight. The blade suddenly swooshes through the air with great speed. The others had not expected the presence of mages on the enemy side. The chains tightened around the figure as the woman below looked up with a tense expression. She was clearly struggling against whatever was happening to her. The woman, who looked like a beast hybrid, expressed her thanks to Max as she stood ready for the fight. She seemed very sure of herself and the strength she possessed. Someone warned another to watch out for magic, clearly surprised that their opponents even had mages. The transformation that just happened was unexpected, and they were shocked that Helix had not mentioned anything about magic users being present. Someone explained that they did not expect their enemies would have mages on their side. A woman with long light hair moved forward while holding a large, sharp weapon. The wolf of the silent court yelled that its blood feared fire, ordering preparation of niter and sulfate. He seemed confident that they could still win this fight quickly. A person cried out to the madam to watch out for the magic that was coming. This surprise magic was something they definitely did not expect to encounter here. The mage prepared a spell, but someone shouted a warning about the magic coming. The caster, realizing the danger, called out a powerful fire spell called Living Fires. Someone mentioned that the wolf of the silent court's blood fears fire and told everyone to prepare saltpeter and sulfate. They believed this was their chance to win and urged everyone to stand firm and not delay any longer. As the powerful figure landed with a sudden whoosh on the tiled roof, a sharp, yellow, slit-pupilled eye was shown, indicating intense focus or transformation. This person was clearly reacting to something with great surprise or alarm. The wolf form roared loudly, its huge mouth open with sharp fangs ready to strike. This powerful beast was clearly in a state of extreme rage. The mage cast a powerful fire spell called Son of Decay, which was noted to be extremely dangerous. He felt sluggish as the beast lunged at him, but he was not going to give up the fight. A giant serpent's head lunged forward with its mouth wide open. A woman in black and white clothing tumbled through the heavy rain near tall buildings. There was a loud slam as the beast's mouth, showing sharp teeth and a tongue, was violently shut. The person speaking earlier was hit hard, making the attackers think they could win. The creature hissed, its face smeared with blood, clearly in distress from the attack. It seemed taken aback that their opponents possessed magic, something unexpected in this fight. The monstrous creature seemed to crack under pressure while the white wolf with glowing red eyes stood ready in the rain. The sound of cracking echoed as the beast's tough hide appeared to break. The white wolf beast form seemed to be struggling against a dark shadow and some scattered debris on a wet, tiled floor. Its eye glowed with an intense red and orange light, showing deep concentration or pain amidst the fight. Someone cried out in shock, wondering how this situation could even be happening. The powerful beast coughed hard while others realized they had not expected mages to be involved in this fight. Someone noticed that the transformation they were seeing was controllable, making one of them angry that Helix had not mentioned this fact. They continued to worry about the situation unfolding before them. Someone was surprised that the enemy had mages, calling the transformation unexpected and something Helix did not mention. Another person told the group not to be scared because the blood of the Silent Court's wolf fears fire, and they should get niter and sulfate ready. The people fighting declared that they could not wait any longer, thinking their enemy was only panicking. They urged everyone to stand firm because they believed they could still win the fight. Suddenly, a massive white wolf let out a powerful roar. This beast was under the control of someone, which surprised the people present. The wolf snarled a warning, telling everyone they were sealing their own doom. Then, a figure appeared high above, ready to face the beast. The woman was warned about magic, but the man seemed shocked to realize there were mages present. He realized the person they were fighting possessed a terrifying transformation power that Helix had not mentioned. Someone called out to the madam, noticing the power the hunters possessed. They thought that this power might bring the hunters to a new world, but the one who caused all of this was the resident of 23rd Street. The others were thinking about how this amazing power could bring the hunters into a new world. However, they were more focused on the person who helped cause all of this, the resident of 23rd Street. The enemy knew that the wolf of the Silent Court's blood feared fire, so they prepared a strong spell using saltpeter and sulfate. They encouraged the hunters, telling them this was the power they had always dreamed of. The people realized they had to focus on the current fight and not worry about the mysterious man from 23rd Street. Their only job right now was to follow orders and claim the glory later. The men decided their only job was to follow the powerful one and share in the success later. They knew they must not think about the resident of 23rd Street, only their next duty. The person speaking was focused only on following orders and sharing the glory later. A confident smile appeared on the face of the silver-haired woman. The person standing over the other agreed with what was said. The one with long light purple hair stood looking down in the pouring rain. The woman with the wolf features said that they should leave because the fight was not yet finished. She stepped forward into the pouring rain, telling the other person to follow her. The people in white robes prepared a fire spell, calling it living fires. They were surprised the enemy controlled the beast form so well. The caster unleashes a blazing living fire spell with a swooshing motion. They seem surprised that someone else possesses such power. The masked figures in white robes raised their staffs against the blazing magic being unleashed. They were casting a fire spell called Living Fires toward their target. The powerful white wolf tail whipped by with a loud sound. Someone was surprised the beast form was still under control. A bright white wolf-like creature flashes with intense light as it moves very quickly through the air, surrounded by streaks of color. This incredible speed and power suggest a major magical confrontation is happening. The intense fire attack hits with a loud crash, causing a reaction on the beast's fur. A close-up shows the beast's yellow eye, indicating it is still alert despite the powerful magic. The creature let out a frustrated sound while something large and dark appeared beneath the rain. The person controlling the beast seemed annoyed by the turn of events. The hunters group realized with shock that their enemy had mages who could use magic. They urgently warned each other about the incoming magical attack. The mage unleashes a powerful fire spell called Son of Decay, causing immediate danger. Someone shouts that this attack is truly dangerous. The people realized they were facing a terrifying wolf form, which they wondered if it was the dream beast or some dimensional traveler. They quickly shifted their focus back to the main fight, needing to counter the sudden fire magic being used. The beast opened its massive jaws, while a bright, golden energy started to appear near the bottom. The user of the magic felt sluggish, but quickly brought forth a powerful fire spell called Son of Decay. The mage used a very strong fire spell called Son of Decay, which looked incredibly powerful and dangerous. Someone shouted that this attack was really risky. The wolf form, still under the rain, glowed with intense yellow and blue energy. Another burst of bright light exploded from a close-up view of something small and round. The cloaked figures unleashed a powerful beam of light and fire, striking downward with incredible force. This blast was immediately recognized as the dangerous fire spell, Living Fires. The powerful fire spell, the Son of Decay, crashes down with incredible force. Everyone watching realized this attack was extremely dangerous. The wolf beast looked very stressed, sweating slightly as the rain started to pour down heavily. It seems the unexpected magic users are causing a real problem for them now. A man wearing a white hooded robe was struck by a chain, and a woman with long light hair watched with a knowing look. The man in the back was busy attacking while the woman seemed to be observing the fight's progress. Someone shouted out to their madam as they realized the enemy had unexpected mages. The people were shocked by the sudden transformation that Helix had not warned them about. Yuan was told someone was helping her, and he admitted he did not know Nakan still had someone like that. Someone else then pointed out that they should look at Yuan, as he was even more important than Wilda. The remaining hunters were surprised that someone could control the beast form so well, something even Wilda could not do. They heard reports that the people from the secret instrument tower had also seen the owner of 23rd Street. Someone expressed surprise that even knowing about the beast form, another person was able to control it, something even Wilda could not do. They then asked if anyone had seen Wilda. The hunters were told by people from the secret instrument tower that the mysterious person had also appeared on 23rd Street. The grim-faced man stared out, saying that it was not time for action yet. The creature then permitted them to go, suggesting that the person they were chasing was still their teacher. The intense, glowing eye of the dark, shadowy being stared out into the pouring rain. The man in the hood saw the beast form and wondered how the person controlling it knew their location. He thought about the power the other person used, especially the refined language that unleashed such strength. Someone exclaimed in surprise, realizing they had been careless. They then identified the creature as the dream beast, the wolf of the silent court, famous for dimensional travel. The mage shouted a warning about the magic while standing beside a glowing white wolf-like beast. This sudden transformation surprised everyone because Helix had not mentioned such powerful abilities. The person speaking wonders how the enemy found their location to teleport there. That method of finding coordinates seems like something a skilled black mage would use. The massive wolf form lunges forward with incredible speed, its eyes glowing red in the blurry rush. This terrifying beast, controlled by magic, seems to be crashing down onto something below. The white beast roared in pain as something struck it hard. Someone yelled a warning about magic, suggesting they needed to be careful of fire spells. Someone cried out the name Yuan just as a powerful blue light seemed to descend. It looked like the person being addressed was in serious trouble. The man in white suddenly shouted a move called Vertigo Flash. He seemed to have just landed hard on a surface with a loud crack. The person was surprised to hear such powerful magic being cast using very careful language. This kind of magic pointed to a skilled black mage. Someone realized the terrifying technique belonged to a skilled black mage, but then felt their movements slow down. This person was immediately hit with a powerful fire spell called Son of Decay, which looked incredibly dangerous. The being yells to run, saying that even if its body is messed up, it will use a forced blink. A clawed foot is shown as it is enveloped in a purple, smoky energy. The beast coughed up blood in the pouring rain, its sharp teeth on display. A figure in a white cloak stood ready, clearly shocked by the sudden turn of events. Someone asked Mr. Helix if he was okay, and he just replied that he was fine. Looks like the person in charge of 23rd Street might be even stronger than they first believed. They just watched the battle and realized how strong this individual truly is. Someone was shocked to see that the other side even had mages involved in this fight. A loud cracking sound came from the man's arm as he was injured and bleeding. The person in the hood questioned if the reason was because she had the power to teleport. Yuan confirmed that the owner of 23rd Street showed impressive abilities, including extracting intel and dispelling mind spells. Someone questioned if the person in question had the power to teleport. He argued that her abilities, like taking information from a soul and knowing their location, were more interesting. The man noted that the woman could not only find their location but also undo mind spells. He admitted he was more interested in that kind of power for now. The man thought that while the girl's powers were interesting, he had something more pressing to deal with. He told Yuan to go look at someone who was even more important than Wilda. Someone mentions that the person from 23rd Street is even more important than Wilda. Another person confirms this order with a simple agreement. Someone held a dark, glowing object in their hand, wondering about its potential. They asked Yuan what his thoughts were on what would happen next. The man with gray hair triumphantly held up a dark sphere crackling with blue energy, asking if something was about to hatch. He seemed very excited, believing he had the power to win the fight now. A man in a white hood noticed the creature and whispered that it was a dream beast. He seemed quite shocked by what he was seeing. A character realized the intense power coming from the other side was not something small. The monstrous mouth opened wide, showing sharp teeth as a deep voice declared that the power was something like a god. They exclaimed that what they were seeing felt like a real god. A giant, terrifying mouth with bright teeth seemed to fill the screen. The day starts with the man noticing the heavy rain outside and thinking he will wait for better weather to get his daily things. He He then admires some books and quill, thinking about old Wild's good work. He steps down the stairs, still thinking about the weather. He closes the door with a soft sound, planning to buy supplies later when the rain stops. As he goes into the room, he closes the door more firmly with a hammer, thinking about how good old Wild's craftsmanship is. He sits down and looks at a dream catcher, deciding that even if it is just a blessing, the dream catcher itself is a very beautiful handmade item. He notes that old Wild makes things like this, just like the gargoyle. He decides to talk to old Wild about this next time he visits, then yawns and hopes that the dreamcatcher really works for him. He wishes himself a good night and sweet dreams as he lies down in bed. He is now asleep, with the glowing dreamcatcher hanging above him. The dreamcatcher begins to emit a soft, glowing light that streams downwards. He finds himself in a strange place where small white dots fall like snow, and he wonders if it is snow. Dressed in white clothes, he stands in this strange, soft-lit area and asks himself if this is his dream. He looks down at the ground where the white particles are like ashes, but he feels that it is not cold. He realizes the air is actually a bit warm, which makes sense since it is a dream, and he feels a sense of wonder. He is suddenly surprised by something, and a sound effect indicates a quick movement downward. He seems to be falling or gliding down towards a beautifully lit, snowy forest area, seeing trees covered in white. The background shows towering, snowy cliffs and more of the white particles falling around him. He stops and looks around in awe, whispering how beautiful everything is, and then looks at his bare feet on the ground. He stands before a gigantic tree with winding branches that look like they are tangled with its skeleton. Realizing such a tree cannot exist in real life, his attention is suddenly caught by something near him, and he wonders about the beautiful, long white hair floating nearby. A gorgeous woman with long white hair and elf-like ears, wearing a white dress, appears to be sleeping or lying against the giant tree trunk. He stares at the sleeping beautiful woman, and then the view switches to him looking surprised. He stands on a high root of the tree as a strange but familiar melody starts playing in his heart, and a woman stands up, looking away from him. Hands appear, seemingly placing a golden crown on a woman's head, while lyrics about a crown of snow play in his mind. He comments on the spectacular scene, thinking it is like a beautiful dream from a fairy tale, and he looks down at a white flower he holds. He realizes old Wilda was not exaggerating about the craftsmanship as he examines the flower, noting its delicacy, cleanliness, and refreshing scent. He brings the flower closer to his face, confirming that it feels completely real, and then he recognizes the situation. He thinks this must be the lucid dreaming people talk about. He understands that in a lucid dream, a person keeps their thinking and memory, and can even feel things as if they were real. He figures the dreamcatcher must have given him a psychological suggestion, which, combined with old Wilda's words, caused this realistic dream. He feels proud of his own scientific and poetic explanation. He wonders if he can do anything he wants in this dream, but quickly dismisses the thought, realizing dreams still have limits. A little animated version of him pops up with an exclamation mark. He then wonders why he would dream of such beauty and why the dream person is so clear and unfamiliar. He dismisses the thought by saying, "Never mind." He thinks that no matter what, people in dreams are usually not as clear or unfamiliar, but he decides not to dwell on it, concluding it is just a dream. A cute chibi version of him thinks to himself about how Chinese people like silver-haired characters, before he refocuses on the grand tree and the fact that anything can happen in a dream. He decides to test the limits of this dream and see what this dream person can do. He approaches the beautiful sleeping elf-like woman surrounded by a field of white flowers, noting how beautiful she is. He leans closer to the sleeping woman, thinking that since it is definitely a dream, her beauty is a perfect work of art. He suddenly gets very flustered as he gets close to her, noting her beauty is like Venus de Milo, and his heart starts beating fast. He decides he can let himself be a bit bold since it is a dream, and he gently touches the flower he holds, thinking he can count it as admiration for her looks, even though the flower is not his. He touches her hair, feeling a bit shy but excited about being bold because it's just a dream. He feels a bit excited about being so forward, but tells himself it's not a big deal because it's a dream, as he looks at her face up close. He touches her chest area, realizing she is not awake, but then suddenly he jumps back with surprise and an exclamation mark, as if something unexpected happened. He turns around quickly as he hears a rustling sound in the trees, and the elf woman starts to move. The sound of rustling increases as the woman slowly begins to stand up, with some pink shapes appearing on her dress. He stares at her, completely shocked, realizing she is very tall, at least 2 meters tall, even when she was lying down. He thinks to himself that truly, anything is possible in a dream, as the beautiful woman opens her stunning purple eyes. The now awake woman looks at him and asks, "Who are you?" And he is surprised that she asked him first. The man found it interesting because the people in dreams usually come from one's subconsciousness. This felt like a great chance to talk with his own subconscious. The mysterious lady called him a dreamer, which he agreed with. Then he realized she knew they were inside a dream. This dream person was full of surprises. He thought that his subconscious projection was quite mysterious, confirming that this was definitely his dream. Then he bravely declared that at least his answer was true, and it was his turn to ask something. The lady got ready to challenge him back, and he immediately felt that this was bad because her smile looked very deadly. Suddenly, the scenery changed, and the man noticed that his casual pajamas had turned into his usual sharp suit. He realized that since he was lucid dreaming, he could change reality a bit with his imagination. Because it was a dream, he didn't need to be too careful, so he invited her to sit down. He offered her his hand, noting how cold and tender it was, but then decided they should figure out the situation first. He asked her if she had always been the only person in this dream. She replied that no one had ever entered there before, only her. The man thought she looked like a Rapunzel, forever living alone in this beautiful, fairy tale-like garden, which was her eternal rest. He felt sad that even though he understood her issue, he could never truly help her in a dream. She then described her feeling as loneliness because she was always by herself and no one understood her. The lady explained that she only had pondering in her life, and the more she thought, the more painful it got. The man realized she was even a philosopher and mentioned an old saying about man thinking and God laughing. He suggested ignoring the original meaning and putting a romantic spin on it. If God saw such an extraordinary thinker, he would smile cordially. The lady seemed intrigued by this romantic theory. The man admitted he was a romanticist to a fault, and maybe that's why he could chat with her and understand her. She agreed, saying his appearance meant he already understood her, perhaps making him an even greater thinker. He asked if that was how a philosopher gives compliments, finding her words soothing and feeling approved by her. He then shifted his approach, thinking it was best not to let a self-isolating person take the initiative, as she might reject him subconsciously. He had to ask in a way she wouldn't refuse, saying that even though the place was beautiful, she would get bored of the same scenery eventually. He suggested that having friends to share trivial stories with brings more joy than being alone. Speaking of sharing, it led his thoughts to advertising and then to book recommendations, because he wouldn't be himself if he didn't advertise a few books. Even though they were not in a bookstore, he believed he could replicate a book from memory like his suit. He produced a book, telling her to see it as a present from a friend, as it had been a long time since someone gave her gifts or talked to her. She looked touched and offered him something from her side. She explained she had nothing else, only the tree, its fruits, flowers, and honey, and told him he could take one as a present from her. He noticed the tree had golden fruits and wondered if they were useful to him, as flowers were not. He asked if the golden fruits could be eaten raw, and she happily confirmed, of course. He took one, and it looked like a normal apple, but he still wanted rare items from this rare experience. After taking a bite, he thought it was crispy and sweet, and surprisingly, it didn't even have a core. She asked how it tasted, and he replied it was quite sweet, wondering if this meant he was waking up already. He felt reluctant to leave so soon, feeling like he hadn't been there long, but knew he couldn't judge much from a dream experience. He concluded by saying he hoped to meet her again when the next night came. Suddenly, the dream world started to crack and make loud snapping sounds. He looked surprised, wondering if he was waking up. He felt that he hadn't been there long, but realized he couldn't judge much from a dream. Even though he was reluctant, he expressed his hope that they could meet again in this dream the next night. The lady looked at him with a gentle smile as his form started to fade, reaching out to hold on to him amidst the breaking reality. He whispered that he had to go, and she looked sad but accepted it. The dream world dissolved into chaotic colors and sharp shards, with the man's figure fading away. The final image showed the lady alone again in the collapsing beautiful garden. A man lights a cigarette in the heavy rain, with water splashing all around him. He stands alone in the dark, rainy alley, the smoke from his cigarette rising up. The man thinks that choosing Helix might have been a bad idea, but choosing anyone else would have been worse. He reflects on his past actions, feeling he has already betrayed his teacher and killed his student, so there is not much he can do now anyway. He then questions why this particular mission needs someone like him to handle it personally, especially while he is injured. He explains that the young Lady Jai became much stronger recently, and even he and someone named Helix could barely fight her. He also mentions that the old man Wilda, who was supposed to be fatally injured and hiding, has reappeared even stronger than before. The man realizes that both these powerful individuals are connected to that bookstore owner on 23rd Street, and it seems their fates have been completely changed. Someone asks him if he remembers his mission, and the man confirms with a slight sound of movement. The man in the cloak states that his mission is to investigate the bookstore and its owner. He is instructed to only get details like the owner's level and appearance, and the general layout and location of the bookstore. He is then told to go and is expected to return with good news, while a dark, ominous shadow effect appears below. An aerial view shows the rainy street as the agent prepares to move, with a small speech bubble indicating silence or thought. The agent moves swiftly, noting that the black scaled faceless has reappeared after becoming much stronger. He expresses disbelief, saying even a horror fiction author wouldn't use such a ridiculous story element so easily, and hopes the intel is wrong. He looks down, perhaps searching, as the rain continues to pour down heavily. He arrives at the location, stating the address, 23rd Street number 412, bookstore. Looking down with a sinister grin, he confirms that this is what the description said. Inside, the agent observes the first floor, which looks empty and strangely quiet, with shadows stretching across the room. He is puzzled because, judging by his senses, there is no magical reaction. It seems like just a normal bookstore. He wonders if the higher-ups made a mistake, but decides he should check the second floor anyway, where he senses a life sign. The narration zooms in on a demonic statue, implying the hidden danger or the nature of the entities involved. The agent stands before a single closed door on the second floor, noting it is the only place he hasn't checked, and it shows a life sign. He senses a normal aura, not like a mutant, and feels relieved, thinking the mission is surprisingly simple and Mr. Yuan worried too much. He muses about how a poor bookstore could possibly hide a monster, then decides to kill the storekeeper and report back triumphantly. He prepares to open the door, thinking about how funny the reactions of his superiors will be when he reports he has already dealt with the supposed threat. Suddenly, the scene drastically changes to a beautiful, dreamlike space filled with glowing blue flowers and a strange glowing object above someone lying down, who thinks the situation is hilarious. The view zooms out on the dreamlike scenery, showing the dark, twisted branches intertwined with the glowing flowers. The perspective shifts back to the agent inside the bookstore, who is shocked, his eyes wide with terror as he looks up from his position on the stairs. Below him, the bookstore owner, who looks peaceful, is seen resting with his hands clasped calmly. The dreamlike flowers and branches seem to be growing out of the room, and a figure in a suit is seen standing at a doorway below, looking back toward the stairs. The agent on the stairs has a look of extreme shock and fear, indicated by his wide, terrified eye. A massive shadow figure bursts forth with a loud thump, attacking the agent. A giant, monstrous eyeball appears as the agent looks down, seeing a dark, shadowy figure emerge. The agent recoils, turning and reaching for a doorknob, seemingly trapped or retreating. He manages to reach the doorknob, muttering in distress about a crack while moving backward up the stairs. The agent, clearly under some mental duress, stutters about needing to remove anything that threatens the Lord's existence. His face twists into a maniacal, wide grin, tears streaming as he screams his purpose to protect his lord. He declares, "My lord, your servant is here eager to serve." Back in the rainy alley, the first agent, who was waiting, checks his watch after half an hour has passed. He notes that John is taking too long for a simple mission, suggesting the bookstore is not simple after all. He concludes that sending someone else was the right choice, feeling the situation is manageable, as John should be able to escape even if something bad happens due to his abilities. He explains that John is a half-blooded shadow bryozoan, meaning he can transform into a shadow very quickly. He believes John can easily blend into shadows to infiltrate or escape, but then starts worrying that John might have already alerted the owner. He sees the cigarette he threw into a puddle, indicating a slight disturbance or the sudden realization of something wrong. The waiting agent decides that when John returns, he will take over the mission himself. He suddenly feels uneasy, realizing that even though he extinguished his cigarette, he still sees a shadow in the dark, rainy alley. He curses, realizing the danger is still present, and throws something aggressively, summoning a fire spell, Blaze. Using a pack of cigarettes as a focus, the agent attacks with a powerful fire spell, aiming at where the shadow was. A huge explosion erupts in the alley. The waiting agent stands alone in the aftermath, noting that the rain has severely weakened his fire spells and he needs to retreat. He gets angry, shouting that he doesn't care why John betrayed him, but now John must die, and he prepares a more powerful spell, fire spell, Scorched Earth. The shadow figure, much larger and more imposing, swooshes toward the first agent. The shadow figure attacks with powerful, dark tendrils, showing intense speed. The first agent is struck hard by the attack with a loud thump. A close-up shows his arm severely wounded by dark spikes, and he screams in pain as fire erupts around him. The shadow figure roars in triumph as it stands tall amidst massive flames, leaving the first agent on the ground. The first agent, heavily burned but alive, pants and shouts for the figure to shapeshift, realizing he is facing Inferno, and claims he knows more about betrayals than the opponent does. He challenges the attacker, asking if they thought he wouldn't be prepared, calling them naive and foolish. He reaches out toward the raging Inferno, ready for whatever comes next. The figure engulfed in fire seems to dissolve, leaving only charred remains on the ground, suggesting the attack worked. However, the first agent looks up with shock and confusion as the environment changes and he senses something else. He shouts in disbelief, "What?" clearly realizing the defeat was not final. A close-up shows a monstrous skull-like face emerging from the fire, its eyes glowing red. The shadow figure from before strikes again, knocking the first agent down, who then screams, "You're not John. Who are you?" The fallen agent looks up in horror as a massive, skeletal figure begins to appear, saying, "My lord." The giant skeletal being opens its massive maw and proclaims that its servant will clear obstacles for the lord. The first agent recoils, stumbling back and shouting, "Lord." Realizing this being is not John, but perhaps the bookstore owner himself, and this is a warning. The agent realizes this entity is not a church disciple but the bookstore owner, and this whole event was a warning. The scene shifts to Mr. Yuan's superior, who is interrupted by a visitor knocking on the door and tells them to come in. The subordinate reports that Mr. Yuan is dead. The superior is shocked and demands to know what happened. The subordinate presents photos and magic forensic analysis of the scene, stating they were reported by the black mages of the Scarlet Cult. The superior examines the evidence grimly, noticing a detail in the background that relates to the flowers from the dream sequence. The subordinate explains that Mr. Yuan sent someone to investigate the bookstore on 23rd Street as ordered, but that person betrayed and killed Mr. He shows a photo of Mr. Yuan's final message written in blood on the wall, which says "Run," indicating his last words. The superior deduces that an unknown creature must have taken over John's mind after he returned from the bookstore, something even the black mages couldn't figure out. The subordinate asks about the next steps, relaying that the black mages are taking the evidence for analysis by Percant Murphy, and they suggested abandoning the bookstore investigation to ensure the hatching of the spawn of the magic mirror. The subordinate also mentions that the spawn is a destructive mutant from the Scarlet Cult that hasn't appeared until now. The superior decides that the White Wolf organization will cooperate as much as possible for now. The subordinate confirms the order, and the superior sees something outside the window, a figure standing alone, leading him to wonder if it is a warning from the bookstore owner. The superior comments that he didn't expect the bookstore owner to be so brutal, recognizing that this is a critical moment for the hatching of the spawn of the magic mirror, and they cannot afford complications. The scene shows the superior looking intensely at a giant green energy container where a glowing object is suspended, with others standing guard, focusing on the impending hatching. The superior expresses that they are so close to success, stating he doesn't care what kind of creature the bookstore owner is. He stares intensely with a fierce expression, vowing that he will not allow anything to interfere with his plans. The night was filled with floating, glowing feathers above a fancy, somewhat eerie-looking seat. Then, the main character wakes up, realizing it is morning. He stretches and thinks about thanking old Wildo when he sees him next. He felt good, believing that whatever happened in his sleep brought pleasant dreams. He gets out of bed and opens the curtains with a slight sound. He remembers the beautiful, elf-like lady from his dream, hoping they could meet again in a dream next night, just as she said. After thinking about the dream, he looks at the digital clock showing 6:30, and he leaves his room. He goes to the bathroom and starts brushing his teeth while looking in the mirror. While brushing, he suddenly stops and wonders what is going on, as he feels something is strange. A feeling of rawness creeps over him as he focuses on his mouth. He opens his mouth wide to check and sees something very surprising. He is shocked because he suddenly has extra teeth, making him wonder if his dream entity, Inkai, thought giving teeth was a blessing. He remembers that having 40 teeth was a trait of Buddha, which might mean good fortune, but he sighs, deciding not to overthink what the entity thinks. He decides he will ask about the teeth if he meets the dream person again. Then he gets ready for the day, excited about potential new customers. He opens the door of his shop with a creak, ready for business, hoping for new customers today. As he steps out, he notices something is off. His neighbor usually plays the news very loudly at this time. It is very quiet, making him wonder if the neighbor has a tripped fuse or if the owner of the video store next door is sick. The camera zooms in on his nervous neighbor, Mr. Colin, who looks terrified. Mr. Colin is shaking and clearly scared, perhaps because of the unusual quietness. The main character knocks politely on Mr. Colin's door, asking if something is wrong. Mr. Colin jumps up in fright when he hears the knock. The main character asks if everything is okay, and Mr. Colin replies that he noticed the absence of the morning news broadcast. Mr. Colin panics internally, thinking he's been exposed for doing something weird, which usually leads to death in movies, so he quickly promises to turn the TV on. He fumbles for the remote, apologizing profusely and saying he is switching the TV on right now. The news reports an accident. A collapsed wall on Road Roman 20 caused a man's death, and the secret instrument tower is investigating. The main character thinks it must be due to bad weather, but senses Mr. Colin sounds genuinely scared. He asks Mr. Colin if he is sure he is fine and advises him to rest for a better life, while Mr. Colin interprets the advice as a direct warning that he might die if he does anything stupid, making him cry because he is still young and doesn't want to die. He realizes the visitor knows he was planning to contact a priest for an exorcism and regrets sending the message. The visitor calls out, Mr. Colin, and Mr. The screen shows that the message was successfully sent to the Church of the Dome priest addressed to Vincent. Mr. Colin reacts with alarm as he realizes what he has done. He exclaims, "It's over." He curses, realizing it is too late for regrets now that he has sent the message. Mr. Colin cries out to the father of the Church of the Dome, begging him to save the poor lamb. Mr. Colin catches his breath and assures the visitor he is fine and there is no need to worry, while the visitor seems thoughtful. The visitor agrees to leave him be, then turns and walks back into the dark bookstore. The main character is troubled by a lingering feeling that the visitor is still hiding something, and wonders if he should buy a gift and visit him. As he thinks this, a bell rings and the main character smiles, welcoming a new customer. He notes the customer is young and energetic despite the rain. The young lady enters, closing her umbrella, looking determined. She steps further into the shop, thinking about whether this is the bookstore her father mentioned in his documents. The girl looks intensely at the bookstore owner, who waits patiently behind his desk. The owner asks what she needs, whether it is borrowing, purchasing, or just browsing. The girl seems unimpressed by his normal appearance, feeling disappointed. She wonders if her father made a mistake, thinking the place is just an ordinary bookstore, which is not fun at all, especially after she risked the rain and her father's anger to come here. She asks him directly if he is the owner, and he confirms that she can ask him for anything she needs, including borrowing or buying books. She thinks he doesn't look very impressive, making her question if her father was wrong. She inwardly complains about going through all that trouble just to find an ordinary store. Then, she perks up, recalling his offer that she can have anything she wants. She asks if she can really have anything she wants. The owner chuckles internally, wondering what kids are thinking nowadays. He qualifies his statement, saying it is only fine if her demands are not too outrageous. She slams her hand on the table and declares her demand. She wants to arm wrestle him, asking if that's too much. The bookstore owner is completely bewildered by this request. He wonders why anyone would choose arm wrestling out of borrowing, purchasing, or browsing books. His life teacher instinct tells him something is definitely going on with this girl. He observes her carefully. She cleaned her shoes, which shows good manners, and her well-kept red hair suggests she is from a well-off family. He also noticed her look of disappointment, meaning she came here intentionally, not just to escape the rain, which just makes him more confused. He wonders why such a girl would visit his shop just to arm wrestle, thinking his bookstore isn't that charming to warrant an advertisement. He tries to recall his recent customers, Jai Jiksu and Joseph, and then realizes this young lady looks quite similar to Joseph. He focuses intensely, recognizing the connection, and realizes she must be related to Joseph. An older, stern-looking man with a beard seems to confirm this realization to the bookstore owner. The young girl gasps, realizing he figured out her connection to Joseph, while the bookstore owner seems to be taking in the moment. The girl feels an intense pressure from him and stutters, asking what is wrong with an arm wrestle request. The owner realizes he stared too long, then agrees to the arm wrestle but states he has 2 questions first. He asks his first question, waiting for her response. The girl asks what his questions are, and he starts with question 1. He asks if she is here because of Joseph, which shocks the girl. She exclaims in surprise, "How did you know?" confirming his suspicion that she is Joseph's relative. The owner pours a cup of tea, telling her not to look at him like that because she and Joseph look very similar, to which the older man reacts angrily. The girl yells in protest about looking similar, but the owner notes that her rebellious attitude strongly suggests she is Joseph's daughter. He proceeds to his second question, why she specifically wants to arm wrestle him while sipping his tea. The girl explains that Joseph told her if she is bothered by something but can't act due to restrictions, she should find someone to arm wrestle. The owner is skeptical, asking why arm wrestling specifically, and she continues by relaying Joseph's reasoning. Opponents look weak when refusing, and you can force them to play. She adds that arm wrestling also gives a reason to fight back if the opponent gets angry and makes a move. The bookstore owner is shocked, thinking this is the kind of military mindset Joseph teaches his kids, and covers his face in disbelief. He decides it doesn't matter, accepts the unusual logic, and asks how they should proceed with the arm wrestling. The girl happily suggests they play until one person wins twice, which she thinks is fair, making the owner realize she probably had an argument with Joseph and wants to vent on him. He regrets his earlier positive thoughts about her manners, realizing she is here to use him for venting frustration, and decides he needs to correct this behavior. He tells Joseph's daughter that he apologizes to Joseph, but he won't hold back because it's for her own good. As they begin the arm wrestle, the owner feels her strength is like a normal adult man's, making him wonder if she is really a class I, and he decides to go easy so he doesn't hurt her hand. The counting begins with 3, and then 2. As the count reaches 1, a loud thump is heard. The girl's arm is slammed down onto the table, and she looks completely shocked. She stares in disbelief, wondering how that was even possible. The young girl was shocked, asking how she could possibly lose the arm wrestling match to a guy with only average strength. She thought the guy looked smug, like he was bragging about his win. Meanwhile, the man adjusted his gloves with a knowing smile. The girl got angry, remembering how she could easily beat 10 people at that age, and felt it was illogical to lose against someone with her level of strength. The man told her that for a young girl, her strength was already impressive, even if her official ranking was about to change. She argued back that they were in a stalemate at the start, but he sarcastically dismissed it as a very quick stalemate, making her feel he was being mean. Feeling her dignity as an apprentice knight was wounded, she refused to accept the loss and demanded a second round, certain she would win this time. He immediately got into position, leaning forward with intense focus for the rematch. The man thought about how intense she was, almost like she wanted to eat him, recalling the saying like father, like daughter. However, he found seeing a strong girl struggle so hard quite endearing in a contradictory way. He agreed to the rematch and they prepared to lock hands again for the second round. They counted down from 3, both focused intensely on the impending contest. When the man said go, the girl strained with all her might, letting out a loud grunt as they began to wrestle. Both hands were gripping tightly, generating intense pressure and a bright golden aura around their locked hands. The man mused about the father-daughter dynamic and how seeing the feeble girl struggle was somewhat appealing, while internally thinking about her father. The man chuckled and with a sudden move, he forced her arm down with a loud impact. The girl was defeated again, her head slumped onto the table in utter despair. She looked up confused, wondering if it was really that bad since it was just arm wrestling, but the man warned her that if they fought with knives, she would be dead, telling her to choose her fights wisely. The man thought it was good to make her remember this lesson, worrying that a small girl who wrestles with people might turn into a delinquent. He then decided to do a good deed and save her from that path. She looked flustered by his comments about her future path. The man accepted her defeat and asked her to finally tell him why she came to his bookstore. She replied that she came to borrow a book. The man was surprised she didn't say so earlier and eagerly asked which book she needed, looking like a merchant delighted by a potential sale. The girl explained she needed the book her father borrowed, saying she only read half before he almost found her, and she wanted another copy to know the ending. She then regretted not just borrowing it from the start. She worried if her father would lend it to her now, and the man noticed her wariness suggested she feared her father. He guessed that the book, The Little Prince, was the cause of their current issue. The man confirmed he had a copy, but suggested she try talking to Joseph first, mentioning he was reading a book like that already. The girl was worried, explaining that if her father knew she found out he was reading it, he would definitely be furious and would never lend it to her. The man disagreed that he would be furious and suggested that if she showed understanding, her father would too. A chibi version of the man argued that Joseph never understood her. The girl then complained that her father was always busy and just nagged her when he came home, criticizing her practice results harshly. She lamented that no matter how hard she tried, she could never earn her father's approval, as he always compared her to his past self. The man understood it was a problem related to bad grades, and in that case, he had a solution. He looked thoughtful while she watched him near a tall stack of books. The man suggested they impress Joseph, explaining that a workaholic father overlooked his child's education, causing grades to drop. He saw the father as a retired soldier who only knew how to nag to push his child forward, but the child saw it differently. Sighing about the pain of being a parent, he presented a specific type of book as the perfect fit for this situation. He recalled an old saying that if a child misbehaves, it means they aren't studying hard enough. He declared that a 5-3 book can cure anything. He noted that basic subjects here are like Earth's, especially math, and thought it wouldn't be unfair to give her more natural science books to enrich her academics. He felt that this world had the same academic nightmares as Earth and wished he could recommend the concept of cramming to teachers here. He then slammed a stack of books down, asking what they were. The girl asked what the books were, and he replied they were for impressing Joseph. She was shocked, thinking it was impossible since her father never complimented her despite her constant combat training. She explained that people expected a lot because she was Joseph's daughter, and he compared her to his past self. The image flashed to Joseph angrily saying something. Joseph always said, "When I was your age, I was already panicky." The girl felt meeting her father's expectations was impossible. The man calmly explained that no matter what, her father just wanted to see her grow, and if she walked the honest path, he'd be overjoyed even if he didn't say so. He guessed that if Joseph saw her improve, he would only scold her a little for small things. The girl wondered why he understood her father so well, but admitted his words sounded quite convincing. She then asked if these books could help her become stronger and get her father's approval. She wondered what kind of books they were, asking if they were for bodybuilding or mana controlling skills. The man smiled, noting she understood quickly that knowledge is power. He then asked if she wanted power. He told her that as long as she could understand and bear the pain, these books would be the key to open that door. As the book glowed, the girl looked terrified, feeling that this process was destructive and reforming. The book opened to a page about the cornerstone of all creation, which he described as a skeleton key to unlock every door. He explained that as a knight, she could use it to directly extract knight's powers, with no bottlenecks or obstacles. He suggested this was something only a god could do, making her wonder what an indescribable level was capable of. She realized she had never dreamt of something so ridiculous, but he easily passed the limitations and created a new version of her, which she found terrifying. The man realized he had triggered her psychological shadow, but he felt he could still help her with basic math. He asked if she was okay and offered help with any questions she had. He pointed out that she couldn't fully comprehend the book, leading her to think he was planning something demonic and that his help would only bring her unimaginable pain, making her feel like a toy. She wondered what would happen when he was done with her, while the man decided that if she was still bad after the 5-3s, he would add a Hue and Gang book. He then thought of giving her mock papers for revision to improve her academics and solve the family conflict. The man decided this was the way to go and resolved to encourage her, since she still wanted praise. He asked what the matter was, wondering why she was still scared and couldn't handle the books. He told her she was a very gifted child and deserved a better future, which made her wonder why she felt like she was on a path of no return if she listened to him. She felt the books were spreading the power of an entity, and the storekeeper was its guide and herald. She thought if she worked hard, she could receive this power and change everything, including making her father proud. But for her, it felt like she had no other choice and had to accept it. She abruptly changed her demeanor, declaring she wasn't afraid and appreciated his generosity, apologizing for her past behavior. The man noticed this dramatic change and remarked that 5-3s seemed to be the nemesis of an unruly child. He told her it was fine, and having this humble and curious attitude was good. He added that the door of knowledge would always be open to her, then asked for $100 for her purchase. The girl took the bag of books and stepped out into the pouring rain, then stopped as a thought struck her. She mumbled, asking herself if she came here to borrow a book, and why she suddenly bought books. She sighed, deciding it didn't matter, and said she needed to go home quickly. As she walked away, a dark expression crossed her face, realizing that after going back, she could immediately start studying. The character realized the situation was dangerous and that the opponent was far too strong. He had to forcefully teleport twice to escape the black mage's attacks. The person cried out in pain after using magic forcefully twice to escape the attacks of a black mage. After landing, the character realized they seemed to be in one piece but wondered what happened to Kay and Max and where they landed. After wincing at the pain, the person realized they were still alive despite the injuries sustained. They wondered about Kay and Max and what kind of strange place they had ended up in. The injured person wondered about the place and was told by the small elf to stay still because the wound was serious. The elf mentioned only just arriving in Nakan and found the magic fluctuations there very strong, almost torturous for elves sensitive to mana. Jaijixu looked at the elf, realizing something important about her. He then asked for her name and why she was in Nakan since not many elves visited that area. The man realized the gentle elf he was speaking to was actually a pure-blooded elf. He was surprised to hear her ask if he was an elf. The elf wondered why someone like him would be in a place like Nakan. She also mentioned that showing up in such dangerous times with his wound was quite a problem. The injured girl, covered in blood, slowly asked if the elf had saved her. The elf confirmed it, stating she had to intervene because the girl was too close to the house. The elf had only arrived in Nakan not long ago and was surprised by the great magic fluctuations. She felt this place was torturous because elves are very sensitive to mana. The elf explained that staying in the chaotic area was painful because elves are sensitive to mana. What surprised her most was finding a girl covered in blood while she was returning from buying groceries. The wounded person woke up and noticed the elf who saved him was now checking his wounds. The elf noted the extraordinary regenerative power of the person, suggesting he was a remarkable hunter. The elf worried that if she had left the injured person there, whoever was chasing her would have found them right away. She mentioned that if the pursuers got too close, they might have found her as well, so avoiding trouble was the better choice. The elf explained that leaving the injured person would have immediately exposed them to their pursuers. The injured person realized that the elf's intervention prevented a swift discovery. The elf explained that she found the injured person close by and brought them in to avoid trouble from anyone chasing after them. She mentioned that elves are natural hunters and are good at cleaning up things like bloodstains. The elf named Doris calmly mentioned that elves are natural hunters, which surprised the other person. She then assured him that there was no need to thank her for her actions. The elf said she was quite good at hiding her tracks and that there was no need for thanks. This made the injured person think about how she reminded him of his predecessors. The elf insisted that the other person did save her life and that she would definitely return the favor. She then asked the injured person to speak, while carefully touching her chest wound. The person asks how long they were unconscious, and the elf replies it has been about 5 hours since she found the injured person. The injured person then reflects on how lucky they are, considering the risks of teleporting while exhausted. The person thought that being teleported while exhausted could have easily killed him, but he was fortunate. He realized that without the steel-like wool bestowed upon him, his body and mind would have surely broken from the continuous teleportation. The elf was clearly in more danger than the man, yet she was the one giving warnings. She explained that she was a hunter whose duty was to slay wild beasts so innocents could sleep soundly, noting that the man reminded her of her predecessors. The man reading the book declared that the help received was not mere luck but came from Mr. What? The elf looked shocked upon hearing this name mentioned. He realized that without Mr. Lin's steel will, his body and mind would not have survived the constant teleporting. Truly, Mr. Lin seems to be able to predict everything, leaving the other person confused among the bookshelves. The person realized that despite having near-fatal wounds before, they were now completely healed after only being awake for less than 10 minutes. They could even feel the strong life force from the blood of the dream beast now inside them. The man who was saved by the elf felt that first he should find out who this mysterious elf named Doris really was. He also noticed that the tainted blood had healed his wounds, but he still needed time to recover. The elf commented that his body's power to heal itself was truly amazing. She added that he seemed like a remarkable hunter. Jaijixu introduced himself and asked the elf why she was in the less visited place of Nakan. The elf, Doris, explained that the area was quite deprived and few other elves ever came around. The elf named Doris states that she has not introduced herself yet, explaining that she is Doris, an elf with a pure bloodline. She then shares that she comes from the Iris family, which is the most ancient and sacred family. The person being healed expressed surprise at the swift recovery from their almost fatal wounds. They felt the strong life force within the dream beast's blood, making them believe the claims about the bookstore owner. Jaijixu was surprised to hear about the Iris family, remembering stories from his childhood about them. He learned that the Elven Kingdom was destroyed after King Candela went mad, leading some elves to make a pact with the witch Walpurgis. The man thinks that only the original witches can be omniscient, and anyone else claiming to be so is just a liar. If their skills are too bad, they should not blame customers for getting angry and retaliating. The images show silhouettes of elves kneeling before a witch, illustrating the contract they made for a new guardian. After that, whenever elves needed help, they would rush to Walpurgis night on the first night of May. The elf named Doris explained that the Iris family had fallen long ago and had not been heard from for centuries. The other person asked if Doris was looking for the witch who made that contract. The elf confirmed the legendary tale with a simple affirmation while holding a glowing, bright blue symbol. She then stated that this powerful figure was one of the 4 original witches. Legends describe her slumbering in a dream world covered in snow and frost. This world holds only white irises and a towering tree made from an ancient dragon skeleton. The image shows a powerful female figure surrounded by falling snowflakes, representing a world with white irises and a giant tree made from an ancient dragon skeleton. This figure is revealed to be Lady Silver, one of the original witches from a forgotten time. The man was surprised that his near-fatal wounds healed completely just 10 minutes after waking up. He could even feel the strong life force from the dream beast's blood, which made him start believing the story about the bookstore owner. The elf revealed that they call the witch Silver, which shocked the other person who realized it was one of the original witches. The origin story of Azir's misty walls being created by the 4 original witches was then shared. The text explained that before the ancient kingdoms, there were only 4 very powerful witches: Silver, Life, Walpurgis, and Yggdrasil. These witches created the misty walls protecting Azir from dream beasts, but they eventually distanced themselves and went to sleep in the dream world. He realized that the legends about the original witches and their protection were actually real. However, he questioned why Doris would come to Nakan since the Truth Society's surveillance network covered the whole area. The elf sighed, admitting that she did not know the details either, but mentioned the great sage had prophesied something. The prophecy spoke of the great Lady Silver, who controls snow, descending to the city of Steel, Nakan, to care for the star-favored people. The elf, Doris, spoke of a prophecy where the great Lady Silver would come to Nakan to help those favored by the stars. Jaijix thought prophecies were always vague and wondered why Doris planned to stay in the dangerous city. The elf girl agreed that prophecies are often unclear and hard to understand. The other person just replied with a simple agreement. The elf asked how long the person planned to stay since Nakan was not a safe place for an elf. The other person replied that the rain was not a big deal because their tolerance for bad environments was very high. Jaishiksu felt that something must be wrong in this place, but Doris dismissed the rain as not a big issue. The elf Doris commented that her tolerance for difficult environments was quite high, looking out at the pouring rain. The other person, Jaijiksu, was clearly more injured but was being warned about the current dangers outside. The elf explained that the spawn of the magic mirror could lower minds and create powerful dream beasts. She needed to keep this secret as the situation in the Union was too dangerous right now. The mysterious elf, Doris, explained that the magic mirror's spawn had the power to tempt minds and create powerful dream beasts. Because of this, she felt the situation might become unmanageable if the secret got out, advising the other person not to go out for a few days. Jaijixer remarks that Doris is clearly in more danger, asking why she is the one giving the warnings. Doris simply states that it is because she is a hunter. The elf explained that gazing into the abyss to become the abyss and fighting when the night bonfire is lit is her duty. She sees slaying wild beasts so innocence can sleep soundly as her calling, reminding her of those who came before her. The strength of a hunter is never solely their own, she said as she gazed upon the abyss. The other person, showing an elven ear, seemed to reflect on this deep statement. Doris told the injured person that he reminded her of his predecessors. She explained that protecting the innocent so they can sleep soundly is what being a hunter is all about, from ancient times until now. The character wonders if Doris truly saw these legends with her own eyes, as she is suddenly startled. Someone shouts in alarm as their freshly made lamb soup spills everywhere. The character wonders if the previous statement about the bookstore owner was incorrect. Meanwhile, a shocked, small figure with a cross for eyes seems to be reacting to something happening in the background fire. Doris offers the recovered man a bowl of fresh, tasty lamb soup specially made for patients. She expresses confidence in her cooking and mentions the ingredients were delivered recently. The person eating the lamb soup was clearly impressed with the taste. The elf girl looked on with sparkling eyes, completely taken by how good the food was. The man quickly slurped down the soup, declaring it delicious. The elf Doris expressed complete confidence in her cooking, noting the ingredients were very fresh. While pouring out some soup, Doris asked Jaishiksu if he knew Nakan well, since he was a local hunter. She then mentioned that as a way to show gratitude he could provide clues about Lady Silver. Doris asks Jaijiksu for clues about Lady Silver, but Jaijiksu replies that his current situation is too dangerous to offer much help. After the rain stops, he suggests Doris visit Mr. Lin at the bookstore on 2320 Main Street for the answer she seeks. The elf suggested that after the rain stops, the other person should visit the bookstore on 23rd Main Street to ask for Mr. Lin, who could definitely provide the answers they seek. The injured person looked confused, showing questioning marks around their head upon hearing the name Mr. What? The injured person asked who this Mr. Lin was, and Doris replied that he was a great man to whom she had sworn loyalty and who spread good words to the world. She said she still cannot see his true self, but his knowledge is beyond words. The person she speaks of is apparently very powerful and has helped her greatly. The elf stirred the soup, saying that to fit in with humans, she only studied the list of mutants put out by the Truth Society. She thought Mr. Lin sounded like a smart person, but she had doubts since he was not on that list. The man questions Doris's high praise for Mr. Lin, wondering if such a person would really be unrecorded by the Truth Society. Doris insists that Mr. Lin is a true hermit who has guided and supported her through dark times. Doris insisted she was only telling Jixu what she saw about Mr. Lin being a true hermit. She passionately explained that Mr. Lin was the one who guided and supported her during her darkest moments, enabling her to defeat her enemies. Doris insisted that Mr. Lin was a great person spreading good messages to the world, just like the Lady Silver that the elves believed in. Suddenly, the man sneezed while dusting, and Doris noticed his strong belief. Doris mentions the dream of restarting the contract from Walpurgis Night that was made millennia ago. The injured man acknowledges that Mr. Lin gave him all of this healing. As the figure quickly pulled off the outer garment, Doris let out a startled cry. She was clearly surprised by this sudden action. The elf Doris expressed shock at the person's body, noting that even while unconscious, they still carried near-fatal wounds. The person then realized their horrific injuries were gone after only a short time awake, feeling the strong life force from the dream beast's blood. The person realizes they no longer had any injuries, despite having near-fatal wounds before waking up. They can even feel the strong life force within the dream beast's blood. The woman realized she could even feel the strong life force from the blood of the dream beast. She was beginning to believe the man's words about the bookstore and Mr. Lin. The elf expressed how amazing Mr. Lin is, calling him the most benevolent, kind-hearted, and powerful person. She added that the generous gift given was just a small thing to him. Jixu says she will visit the bookstore owner for answers after the rain stops. Doris tells her she should rest there for a few days since she still needs to recover. The injured person expressed thanks to Miss Doris for her help and apologized for causing trouble. Doris assured the person that they would find satisfactory answers from Mr. Lin and then needed to think about contacting their subordinates. The elf, Doris, assures the main character that he can find the answers he seeks from Mr. Lin at the bookstore. She then prepares to clean up, reflecting on the nature of omniscience. She thought about finding a way to contact her subordinates, but she still needed time to figure out the current situation. The other person suggested she stay put and offered her a bath while she recovered. The character enjoyed the warm bath immensely after all the ordeal. It seemed his body was healing incredibly fast, even feeling the life force from the dream beast's blood. The man thought about how kind Miss Doris was for preparing a bath for him. He realized then that she was truly a gentle elf. Doris was washing things at the sink while the other person thought about how the healing was incredibly fast. It seemed the beast blood really gave the body an intense life force. Apart from the original witches, no one is truly all-knowing. There are only deceivers who have some kind of skill. The elf suggests that if the skills of supposed wise people are truly awful, then those who are disappointed should not be blamed if they decide to retaliate. The elf then seems to be preparing to deal with some leftover food waste. The figure decided it was time to take care of the remaining food waste. This being then seemed to be channeling some kind of blue energy, preparing to do something. The body of the defeated creature, with its unsettling horn skull and stitched mouth, lay on the floor amidst spilled liquid. It seemed the person who had fought this thing was in a hurry to clean up the mess. The people sent to track something still have no news, making someone frustrated. This man, known as Hound Barker, the abnormal hunter, looks quite displeased. It is confirmed that the tracker is missing, and the question remains where exactly he disappeared to. The other person asks what the people from this harlot cult said about the situation. The answer is they don't know, which causes the first person to react violently and grab the second person. The powerful man, angry about the Scarlet cult's lack of information, is ready to unleash his fury. He shouts, asking if they understand the seriousness of the situation. As all tracks have been completely wiped out, even magical forensics cannot figure out what happened. The person being held manages to mumble that this is why, while the powerful man screams for the investigation to continue no matter the cost. The powerful man demands they find the missing person, not caring how many people die, then immediately changes the subject to ask about Charles' condition. A child reports that Charles has awakened. It is explained that Yuan kept Charles' body in perfect shape and that precise Murphy of the Scarlet Cult revived him. Murphy also injected memories that helped their side, which finally brings some good news, making the powerful man mention Charles again with some relief. He then recalls intel from a trader named Ryan, stating that Charles was Wilda's favorite disciple, which is why Yuan killed that other guy. The powerful man wonders what will happen when Charles, returning from hell, seeks to kill his former teacher, as he hopes the teacher can provide the energy needed for something. This energy is needed to hatch the spawn of the magic mirror. The scene shifts to a figure walking away into a dark, snowy landscape. Snow is falling heavily against the backdrop of a huge, icy mountain. A man in light robes, holding a staff with a crystal, stands firmly in the snowy setting, surrounded by large, broken stone structures. A close-up shows the man's serious face, his light blue hair dusted with snow. The man declares that he is finally here, standing before what looks like the massive stone jaw of a prehistoric creature. The man looks back briefly with a shocked expression before focusing again on his surroundings. He speaks of his teacher, naming him with many grand titles like the most ancient king of words and the last descendant of the giants, finally calling him Giant Kingslayer Augustus. The man, whose name is revealed to be Wilda, proclaims his name and demands an audience with his teacher. Wilda begs his teacher to bless him with power and witness his great achievement. The teacher, an ancient-looking figure, replies that no magic is needed, stating that though he might be called the Black Mage's living fossil, his body has not fully turned to stone yet. The teacher then waits for Wilda to present his work, as a surge of purple energy surrounds them. The teacher is engulfed in powerful purple energy as Wilda stands ready. A sudden, massive impact is shown as something strikes the ground. A figure wearing a crown and ancient-looking armor rises up from the ground, looking like a reanimated king. The purple energy intensifies around the rising figure. The crowned, skeletal figure speaks, saying it has been a while, as Wilda stands small in the distance. The figure calls Wilda his pupil, and Wilda reacts with shock. The giant figure fixes one red, glowing eye on Wilda and demands to know what he brings here. Wilda, smiling now, announces that he has completed the assignment and presents the result for his teacher to see. Wilda reveals a stone gargoyle creation floating above a glowing magical circle, while the teacher looks down with a critical eye. There is a translator's note clarifying the gargoyle is Wilda's work. The teacher examines the glowing magical formation above the gargoyle, with Wilda standing below. The teacher seems to recognize something in the magic, asking, "Is that?" as another hooded figure materializes below. The newly materialized figure surges forward amidst the powerful purple energy. Wilda remarks that it is almost perfect, as the crowned figure observes intently. At this very moment, the crowned figure states that destiny has made its choice. The teacher then declares Wilda graduated, proclaiming, "From now on, thou art an independent black mage." Wilda happily accepts his new status as an independent black mage, acknowledging his teacher's guidance. Wilda expresses his gratitude, while the teacher tells him not to forget his own destiny, calling him his last pupil. The teacher wishes him good luck as Wilda stands ready to go on his own path. Wilda thanks his teacher and proudly states it is his honor to receive his approval as a black mage. The teacher, silhouetted against the purple energy, simply says, "Don't forget your own destiny. Good luck, my last pupil." Wilda stands alone, holding his staff, looking determined. Wilda reflects that at that time, he didn't think much about those deep words, only feeling joy about his teacher's approval and hope for the future. He recalls trying to act like a classic black mage, mysterious, powerful, and elegant, but now he realizes that young arrogance likely caused the later troubles. The scene shifts to the exterior of a gloomy orphanage, followed by a creaking door opening. Someone guides Wilda inside the orphanage, noting that they didn't expect someone important like him to come for adoption. The man running the orphanage, looking nervous, points out that they have too many orphans now and cannot support all of them. Wilda is thanked for offering a chance, and he asks about a specific child, pointing towards one huddled in the corner. The caretaker explains that the child arrived recently and doesn't even have a name yet. Wilda approaches the quiet, sad-looking child sitting alone. Wilda greets the child, introduces himself as Wilda, a black mage, and offers him two choices: stay and die, or come with him. The child, looking scared, responds that he doesn't want to die and begs Wilda to take him away. Wilda agrees to take him, declaring that from now on, the child is his disciple. Wilda reassures the child not to worry about dying and tells him he still needs a name. Wilda decides to name the boy Charles, which makes the boy look shocked and then very happy, calling him master. This marked the official start of Wilda's relationship with his first disciple, Charles, whose happiness is evident. Wilda explains that the master-disciple bond among black mages is very close, like family, because they pass knowledge through language. He mentions later taking another disciple named Ewan, and at the time, Wilda truly believed his power could protect them. Wilda then questions his past belief, realizing that perhaps he favored Charles too much. He thinks Charles lacked the necessary vigilance a black mage needs, and even though he took revenge on the black mage who killed Charles, he never found Charles' body or soul. Without the body and soul, even seeking Augustus to revive him was useless, meaning Wilda had lost Charles forever, which remains his unforgivable sin. Wilda feels that perhaps his teacher saw this coming, understanding why he received guidance and gifted the gargoyle to Mr. Wilda reflects that he only just finished the assignment and his teacher was satisfied, making him realize what his teacher truly meant about destiny. He regrets not having half of his teacher's wisdom, which might have prevented his student's death. Wilda clings to his small hope that Charles might have escaped through a crack in the dream world, but then dismisses this as a pathetic wish, realizing he is dwelling on the past. He wonders aloud if he is truly waiting for a miracle, calling the thought laughable, just as he hears a knocking sound. Wilda is shocked, realizing that his safe hiding place in Nokken has been found, and thinks only he and Charles have ever been here. Someone outside calls out Charles, and the hooded figure outside says, "Teacher, it's me." Charles explains that a black mage named Fred wanted to kill him for revenge against Wilda, but he didn't die. Instead, he was thrown into a shallow crack in the dream world. Charles pleads for his teacher to be there, saying he is waiting, just like they were at the orphanage when Wilda first came to him. Charles' desperate plea is shown again, followed by a flashback to the orphanage where he begged Wilda not to let him die. In the flashback, a younger Charles begs to be taken away. Wilda, back in the present, is seen standing over the fallen body of Charles in the rain, confirming the tragic memory. The vision fades, and Wilda, shaking with emotion, whispers, "See Charles." The man is looking in the mirror and feels something is not right with himself lately. Even though his outside look hasn't changed much, his personality is becoming more like a motivational speaker. He jokes that if he wore a priest's robe, people would start confessing their sins right away. This strange feeling, he thinks, might be related to getting 8 new teeth all of a sudden. He remembers reading about the 32 marks of the Buddha in Buddhism, where having 40 teeth symbolizes a perfect man due to soft-spokenness and kindness. But he is just a simple bookstore owner, so he wonders about this perfect man idea and decides to ask Kai later. Suddenly, a loud knocking sound comes from the door, even though the shop is not open yet, and the weather outside is terrible. He wonders who would visit such a poor shop so early in the morning. He opens the door to see an unexpected guest. It is old Wilda, standing outside in the rain, looking very distressed. The man recognizes old Wilda immediately and notices tears streaming down the old man's masked face. Old Wilda apologizes for disturbing him so early. The man tells him to come inside, saying if he had still been dreaming, old Wilda would be freezing out there. The man advises old Wilda to be more careful in this weather at his age, which makes him pause and think. He finds it strange that old Wilda is visiting him so often, and it does not seem like it is about hitting a roadblock in his research work. Normally, old Wilda should be busy with his research, so this sudden visit makes him wonder if something major has happened in old Wilda's life. He invites him to sit down, offering him some hot tea to warm up. Old Wilda accepts the tea gratefully, and the man decides that since he is not here to borrow books, a nice chat might improve their relationship. He resolves to start with a short story to ease into the conversation. He asks old Wilda if he has ever heard the story of the farmer and the snake. Old Wilda seems unfamiliar with the story, just shaking his head. The man continues, saying that even though the story is simple, it is a classic. He begins the tale. During a very cold winter, a snake was found frozen by the roadside, close to death. A passing farmer took pity on the snake and tucked it inside his coat, close to his chest to warm it up. Using the warmth of the farmer's heart, the snake slowly revived. Once fully recovered, the snake's first action was to bite the farmer's chest out of pure instinct. The farmer died soon after from the venom. The tragic story of the farmer and the snake ends there, with the farmer lying dead in the snow, the snake nearby. The man smiles and asks old Wilda who he thinks is at fault, the farmer or the snake. The man explains that the story is not about fairness. The farmer showed kindness and still died. He presses further, asking if the farmer, upon dying, would blame his own ignorance and softness or the snake's cruelty. Old Wilda looks down, clearly troubled by the question. Old Wilda softly replies that the farmer wasn't at fault for his kindness, and the snake wasn't wrong either, as it just followed its instinct, realizing Mr. Lin already understood the core issue. The man says that is a sensible, neutral opinion, but the story depends on the point of view, suggesting Old Wilda should try imagining himself in someone else's shoes. He asks Old Wilda what he would feel if he were the farmer. Old Wilda answers with a hesitant regret. The man urges him to be more certain, saying there is no probably. He asserts that the farmer's biggest regret would be not understanding the snake's true nature sooner and regretting his own needless, blind kindness. He continues, warning that there are many bad people in the world, advising against trusting others too easily or being soft. He asks rhetorically, if someone has no heart, why would they be moved by kindness? He points out that the other's smile is just joy that the defense has been lowered. Old Wilda wonders if someone without a heart can still live, but then realizes the man is right, and the Charles he met is not the real one anymore. The man confirms that Old Wilda understands his point about Charles. Old Wilda answers with a simple yes, looking more relaxed now that the tough part of the talk is over. The man thinks his tactic of using a short tale as an opening worked well to calm Old Wilda down. Now, he needs to figure out the real trouble Old Wilda is facing. For a long-term empty nester like Old Wilda, daily life shouldn't be bothering him, so this tricky issue must be a big one that brought him here suddenly. He concludes that the biggest issue for empty nesters is usually relatives. He recalls that Old Wilda only has 2 adopted sons who don't treat him well. One is abroad and out of contact, and the other fell out after trying to find his birth parents. The man figures the ungrateful son shouldn't return, and if he did, Old Wilda wouldn't react this way. Therefore, the one who returned must be the first son. He then gets ready to mention something else about Charles. Old Wilda confirms the man's deduction about Charles being the one who returned. The man says, I see, and fully understands the situation now, thinking about how tabloid shows often cover inheritance disputes when elderly people get ill. He explains that suddenly appearing relatives, especially unsuccessful ones working abroad, are usually only after money. The man warns Old Wilda that the Charles who returned might not be the perfect one he remembers, as people who suddenly return with sweet words are usually only looking for benefits from him. He asks Old Wilda if he really wants the relative from his happy memories, or if he wants to give his feelings to a cold-hearted, venomous snake. Old Wilda reacts strongly, realizing he has been lying to himself about the situation. The scene flashes back to a younger Charles appearing, calling Old Wilda master with excitement and happiness, a memory that clearly haunts Old Wilda. The fake Charles's overly enthusiastic greeting causes a sudden negative reaction in Old Wilda, who is sharply told to knock first and show respect. Old Wilda dismisses the scolding for now, telling the eager Charles that Ewan has gone out and needs his help with an experiment. The fake Charles agrees enthusiastically. Old Wilda reflects internally on this beautiful but now painful memory, admitting he gets lost in reminiscence and might not distinguish real from fake anymore, almost being trapped in a fake reunion until Mr. Lin's warning brought him back to reality. He hardens his resolve, stating the time for reminiscence is over and what needs to die must die, especially those who try to use the decaying body to insult his disciple. He whispers that he already knew the truth, but just wanted to stay with him a bit longer, even if it was a lie. But now he accepts he must wake up from the dream. He firmly states he's not my Charles anymore. Old Wilda thanks the man for the second time for valuable advice, saying he knows what to do now. The man expresses trust in Old Wilda's wits to handle the situation alone, though he acknowledges it might be hard since Charles is his child. However, he says not doing anything will lead to more regret. The man concludes that facing the truth, though painful, is better than letting scammers trick old people, and as a friend, he must offer correct guidance. Old Wilda agrees, saying he was foolish and will sort it out immediately, promising not to give the returnee a second chance. Old Wilda mentions there will be a gathering soon where he will spread the man's words, and the man says he looks forward to it. A brief pause follows. The scene shifts to the spy who has gained Old Wilda's trust, reporting on phone that the mission is going smoothly and he will soon learn the rest of the spells. He hangs up quickly as he sees Old Wilda returning. The spy, Charles the imposter, greets Old Wilda warmly, who then demands Charles fetch his sacrificial knife, saying he needs it for testing an important spell. Charles agrees happily, thinking Old Wilda is about to pass on his special spells to him, meaning the mission will end soon after he extracts the final benefit. Charles internally plots to kill Old Wilda using his favorite disciple's hands after getting everything he needs. He then attacks Old Wilda suddenly with a knife, striking him in the head. Old Wilder looks surprised, and the imposter Charles calls out Master. As blood flows from his head, Old Wilder, holding the knife, sadly tells his dying child, "Rest in peace, my child." He states that death comes with its own kind of peace as the imposter collapses. As Old Wilder steps over the fallen body, he says, "So it was you, Murphy." The chapter ends with the revelation that the person pretending to be Charles, the imposter, was Murphy all along. The bookstore owner was enjoying a rare quiet day, thinking about reviewing some classics and thinking over a strange dream. But suddenly, he wondered why customers had been coming one after another recently, keeping him so busy he couldn't even read a book. Still, he welcomed the new visitor with a big smile, ready for business, even if it meant more trouble. He asked the customer if they were there to borrow, browse, or buy books, and if they had any questions they shouldn't hesitate to ask him. The customer, who seemed like a beautiful elf, replied that anything within the scope of business was fine, as the bookstore owner watched her with interest. He thought what a beautiful customer she was, noting how perfect her outfit looked, like a real forest elf. This sight made the owner think if she was a professional cosplayer, reminding him of Earth's developed cosplay culture. He felt nostalgic thinking about Earth's anime and gaming culture, but he didn't expect to see such a professional cosplayer in Nakken. For a moment, he even thought she was a real elf, and he liked the romantic feeling of a golden blonde elf walking into his shabby bookstore. He realized that the customer understood the vibe, and he was delighted by her long, authentic-looking ears, which reminded him of his dream where Silver was an elf. The customer, while thinking the owner was the so-called omniscient bookstore owner, noticed he wasn't surprised, pretending he expected her. She wondered why a human would look at an elf with such an expression of thrill, appreciation, nostalgia, and deep sentiment, like a long-lived species. Deciding to check the shop first, she used her mana sense, thinking this young man might not be as normal as he looked. During her scan, she was shocked to find the owner had 40 teeth, which was anatomically impossible for a human. She concluded he couldn't be human and was something even she couldn't figure out. Recalling he said he'd help if it was within business scope. She wondered if being omniscient and omnipotent meant he was trapped to live only in this bookstore, an ancient being hiding as a human. She then speculated if his nostalgia meant he knew someone from the Iris family, as the spirits of the Iris family were trembling. She realized the aura of the original witch, Lady Silver, was present and her dream world was here, causing the spirits to shake. The woman felt Lady Silver's powerful aura, confirming to herself that someone from the Iris family wouldn't mistake this spirit trembling. She knew Lady Silver's dream world was on the second floor of the bookstore, near the bedroom area. This meant the powerful Witch of Snow, Lady Silver, had descended with her dream world to bless someone. Obviously, the only one who could be blessed was this seemingly young bookstore owner. She wondered if he was the one from the prophecy, the person favored by the stars, and if Lady Silver orchestrated this to lead her to him. She was unsure if Lady Silver had decided about re-establishing the contract with the Iris family, as success meant blessings, but failure meant becoming a sinner. The elf, whose name was Doris, decided she needed to be cautious and introduced herself, saying she heard about the store from Miss Jaijitsu. Doris explained that Jaijitsu got help from the owner and even called him like a god. The owner, hearing he was called a god, felt a bit embarrassed, thinking it was just the suspension bridge effect from him helping Jaijitsu see through a bad guy. He thought this hero worship wasn't good and he needed to tell her to rely on herself more, not others. He mentioned he was just a normal bookstore owner and maybe Jaijitsu relied on him too much. Doris told him he was too humble, explaining that his omniscience and omnipotence came from how he protected people, making them see him as a god. She then shared that Jaijitsu praised him a lot and asked Doris to come seek his help with her family's trouble. Doris thought, since he was favored by Lady Silver, it didn't matter if Jaijitsu called him a god. The owner understood, noting that as the sole daughter of the director of Roll Resources, knowing noble families wasn't surprising in Nakken. He knew Nakken had districts for ordinary citizens, the infected, and the wealthy and powerful, where ancient noble families lived. He realized this customer was a noble, which explained her high-quality cosplay, and saw that new customers were recommended by old ones. He felt happy that his built relationships were finally paying off and thought if he hinted a few more times, his business would boom. Since Lady Silver gave him a sign and her dream world descended, he should leave the final judgment to this favored person. Doris stated that her family, for eons, carried the glory that belonged to Iris, but they declined after losing their faith and became dreamless wanderers. She expressed their desire to reshape their family's past and let the Iris bloom once more, hoping for his help. The owner repeated reshape the family's past, thinking this sounded like it was related to his old profession. He was happy for the chance to research new folk customs, explaining that folk custom involves established cultural conventions passed down through generations, including art, history, and family traditions. He noted that the family emblem is the most important thing passed down by nobles. He deduced that her family must have had a great change that made them lose faith, unable to understand their emblem, which cost them their noble position. So, she wanted him to research her family's history, piece together the emblem's meaning, and help them regain their standing. He agreed it needed a professional, as mistakes could ruin her family's credibility. But this wasn't simple life advice. He declared that it was going to cost her, but he understood her problem and said it wasn't a big deal. Suddenly, Doris noticed a light shining intentionally at the bookstore from outside, feeling it was directed at them. She thought people doing something so rude in this weather were not friendly, worrying her undocumented identity might be exposed. Outside, police cars arrived with flashing lights, and someone was shouting through a megaphone that whoever was inside broke the law by illegal entry and identity forgery, and was now under arrest. The owner inside thought it couldn't be that bad and that the situation was ridiculous, but the light was too dazzling. He decided he should go outside to see what was happening and maybe use this chance to test what would make Kai show up. The owner, appearing composed, noted that he didn't expect such an ignorant person to be outside, telling Doris to please wait there. Doris, looking annoyed, said she would deal with them immediately and they could discuss afterwards, as the people outside did not come in peace. The owner noticed Doris seemed more bothered than him, understanding her anger at being interrupted when she was about to say yes. He figured that since she was a noble, she would be familiar with trouble, and her tone suggested the people outside weren't a big threat to her. He knew he shouldn't push his problems onto a customer, so he asked if she was sure she could handle it. Doris insisted, saying it was her honor to deal with it because he had accepted her request, implying it would belittle her family if he refused her help. The owner sighed, not wanting to seem like he was underestimating her, and agreed, telling her to be careful. Doris replied that she fully understood what he meant, seeing this crisis as his test and condition for her. She thought that when he said it's not a big deal, he promised to talk to Lady Silver as her favorite person. But then he said a new customer was here, and it turned out to be enemies, meaning he wanted her to deal with them to prove the Iris family's resolve. Doris felt a realization as she looked at the sky, noting that the source of the dazzling light wasn't just a few meters away. The scene switched to outside, showing a powerful magic circle high above the clouds, with figures chanting, and a huge destructive energy building up. The intruders reported that the secret instrument tower was alerted and heading their way, but they couldn't delay them for long. They announced they had completed the Nova Death Ray and there was no need to stop them anymore, ordering the teleport ritual to begin. Doris realized that being so close to the Nova Death Ray could gravely wound even Wilde at his prime. An enemy figure, Lady Murphy, shouted a warning to the bookstore owner, threatening him if he interfered in knock-in. Doris thought these black mages were truly insane thugs, as the destructive spell could obliterate the entire area at that short distance. However, seeing how composed the bookstore owner was, she thought this destructive spell might be trivial to him, and perhaps he was using this to test her confidence. She resolved that she would definitely pass this test for the Iris to bloom again. Sister Murphy, from the Plague Church, had a daily routine of praying to God and remembering those who had passed away. Day after day, year after year, her life was just the same until the day she died. But before that day came, her life suddenly turned into hell with no escape. The priest she knew started acting like a savage animal. Sister Murphy did not understand why this was happening to her, as she was attacked near a statue of God. She was thrown down, hurt badly by the priest. Looking up at the beautiful stained glass window, she could only pray harder than usual. She didn't know why she was saved, but she saw a tool appear from the very statue she was praying to. Murphy believed this tool was a gift from God, making it her most precious thing. This tool was called the Coffin of Eternal Slumber, which held powerful spells of resurrection and death. Using the coffin's power, Murphy became very strong and established the Scarlet Cult as her own base. Her personal power also reached the destructive rank, making her a destructive black mage. Because of this power, her attitude changed, and she became very arrogant, not letting anyone disagree with her. In her mind, she was chosen by God, so ruling regular humans was totally normal for her. That is why Wilda's interruption made her extremely angry. Murphy shouted that she didn't care if the secret instrument tower found out, as she wanted to send a strong message to that little bookstore owner who dared mess with her plans. She charged up her Nova Death Ray, knowing it would use 80% of her ether, but it was worth teaching him a lesson. She thought only the indescribables could survive this attack, and unfortunately for her target, he wasn't on Nocken's list of those special people. Murphy promised her target would regret ever going against her, stating that this was the price for defying her. She yelled, "Nova Death Ray Fire!" as a massive, bright pink and purple energy built up. The energy shot out like a powerful red beam, tearing through the air. The energy blast created loud crackling sounds and a huge impact as it fired. The beam was heading straight for the bookstore. As the attack launched, Murphy smiled viciously, thinking this was the price for defiance. Her followers were amazed, cheering that this was the true power of a high-level black mage. They declared Lady Murphy incredible, shouting that the target location would soon be gone. But then, a figure appeared in the blast zone, an elf. Murphy was shocked, wondering why an elf was there, and how one could even be present against such power. The elf looked pure white, and Murphy recognized her as an iris. The elf raised her staff, calling upon the light of victory for the iris family and commanding forest spirits to protect the place. Spirit's power immediately blocked Lady Murphy's destructive rank spell. Murphy realized that this elf was also an unusually strong destructive mage. An observer noted that Lady Murphy's skin was now covered in frost because of the defense. The elf, described as holding a longbow and hunting on endless plains, asked for light from Milady to guide her arrow and ensure her prey could not escape. As the elf prepared to shoot, Murphy was shocked, screaming that the attack was coming. Her target was clearly the teleportation gate, and they knew they would not reach it in time to stop the shot. Murphy knew she had no other choice since the elf had forced her hand. She summoned dark energy and announced that even the coffin of eternal slumber could revive dream beasts to serve her. She proudly showed off the revived great dream beast as a perfect specimen, planning to kill the elf and then use the beast to enter the dream world and kill the bookstore owner. Murphy called the elf uncultured and uncouth, saying that was why she would die, asking why the elf was talking when such a terrifying beast was present. The elf calmly replied that talking was pointless, and she would understand everything in a few more seconds, using transient foresight and a dispel command. The elf stated that the Iris family was protected by the primordial witch who ruled the dream world, asking how Murphy dared use dream beasts against them. The elf told Murphy to know her place, but Murphy scoffed, saying the elf was bluffing and that her great dream beast was the perfect specimen. The elf just smiled, saying, "Just wait and see," as the great beast Shantak appeared, terrified of its nemesis the Night Cunt. Murphy was stunned, realizing she didn't know about this powerful creature. The elf then said that perhaps Murphy would remember this in her next life, emphasizing that nothing is certain unless the prophet says so. Somewhere else, someone felt the floor shaking, wondering if it was an earthquake, and hoping the young lady was okay since natural disasters were becoming frequent. The person couldn't see anything outside in the dark, foggy night, but noticed the car lights were off, suggesting the meeting went well. He decided he should take a look outside. The elf was there, apologizing for the wait, saying it took longer than expected, but everything was resolved. She asked if he was disturbed and said they could now resume where they left off. The lady apologizes for the wait, saying that everything outside has been taken care of. The bookstore owner asks if she was disturbed by what happened. He notes that only her face is a bit pale, and her clothes are not even wet, suggesting the recent trouble did not take much effort for a noble. She replies that it is fine. The owner then mentions that the rain helped cover up all the noise outside. Lady Silver is confused, asking if the rain covered the noise. He explains that he purposely used a silencing spell not to disturb Lady Silver's favored person, and even used a forest sanctuary to block attacks. The owner then realizes he is being too obvious. Lady Silver thinks it is impossible that the bookstore owner does not know he was the one who protected them, yet he attributed it all to the rain. She wonders if his words had a hidden meaning. She starts to think if the current trouble in Nokken, involving the hunters, mages, the secret instrument tower, and the Truth Society, is what he meant by rain. All these groups are part of a messy situation. Compared to everything else happening, the fight between two destructive mages seemed like nothing in his eyes. Even the sound of their battle was insignificant. She wonders if this is how truly powerful people see the world. It seems impossible to understand how this bookstore owner is involved in this reign, but his actions caused a destructive black mage to ignore the rules, which will likely have big results. She feels unsure if those consequences will be good or bad. The owner expresses gladness that she was not disturbed and assures her they will never bother her again. Lady Silver accepts this and sighs about the worsening weather in Nokken, wondering when it will get better. However, he notes that the bad weather has brought more customers to his store, though he quickly says he does not enjoy others' misfortune. He would prefer the old days with fewer customers and a more peaceful life. He recalls how he used to sunbathe and read when he was bored, hoping this cursed weather ends soon. He then adds that if everyone worked together, the situation could definitely change for the better. Lady Silver realizes with shock that everything happening seems to be under his control. She understands he was only being sarcastic about missing his old peaceful life. She starts thinking that maybe everything so far was planned by him just because he was bored of reading books and not having enough customers. Then, she remembers Lady Silver's reaction and worries about the man's awful personality. The little chibi version of her companion panics, realizing how rude he was being while Lady Silver must be tired from facing the weather to deal with those undesirables. He regrets talking about harmony when he should have offered her a warm drink. He quickly decides he needs to do better to earn his customers' trust, not just the small profit. He offers her tea and tells her to rest for a while, feeling he must be courteous and not anger the man who holds his and his family's fate. Lady Silver sips the tea and finds it amazing, noting there are no impurities, which really brings out the tea leaves' flavor and leaves a pleasant taste. The warmth spreads through her body and comforts her, which she says is what elves crave. She contrasts this with what she knows of Nakan humans who like red tea with milk and sugar, realizing this tea was made especially for elves, just as expected from Lady Silver's favored person due to the attention to detail. Meanwhile, the owner thinks to himself. He observes that he only made a simple green tea. He then thinks the battle outside was just a test, and from his perspective, he is still in a good mood. She asks if they can pick up where they left off, and the owner agrees but warns her that regaining recognition will be a long and hard journey. He says he will do what he can, but it mostly depends on her cooperation. He thinks to himself that he needs to stress how difficult the task is first so he can charge more later once it is solved. Lady Silver agrees that regaining honor and recognition is vital for a failing noble house. He recalls their earlier talk and notes she is from the Iris family, which was once glorious and reputable. To restore it, they cannot afford any mistakes, and everyone must be completely committed. If there is no reliable person to do the job, everything is doomed, so he tells her she must only rely on herself. Fortunately, he has read about this kind of undertaking before. He explains that their country's study of heraldry was almost non-existent. After a friend helped him get permission from the Heraldic Society, he wrote other popular science and folklore books alongside his main one, Rituals and Folklore. He shows her the book titled Signs and Symbols, which is the result of his heraldry research, and tells her to read it carefully as it will be useful in the future. Lady Silver looks shocked when she hears this. The owner stresses that regaining former glory is not easy and that they are being bolstered by some energy from what he just witnessed. Lady Silver is amazed, thinking this book has given her so much insight just by looking at the symbol. She reads the words associated with the symbol: sealing, resistance, dreamworld, protection, and retreat. She realizes this symbol was made specifically for dreamworld beasts. She realizes with shock that the book allowed her to enter the premonition state instantly, which goes against everything prophets know. The owner tells her the book will help her understand the task. He adds that it will greatly help if she memorizes any relevant information inside. He thinks he won't explain everything too much because it might cause more problems. He thinks this book, which is basically popular science, should be suitable for a beginner like her, and she should read it first to ask better questions next time. Lady Silver replies that she understands. She states that she will thoroughly read and comprehend this book. She recalls that it usually takes a long time and preparation for a prophet to enter the premonition state. It took her centuries before she received a clue about Lady Silver, and even then, it was a simple yet confusing prophecy. However, this book instantly sent her into the premonition state. She feels the terrifying amount of power in this tiny little symbol and wonders how much hidden knowledge is in this book, let alone the entire bookstore, which feels like a boundless ocean of knowledge. The owner thinks to himself. He decides he should make her feel like his services are limited and give her a sense of urgency so she understands how important all of this is. Lady Silver realizes that since the book has a price, there must be more than one copy. She decides she will buy the other copies so everyone can have one. She assures him they will study it carefully and give their utmost to do as he commands. He feels something is not right, but then reassures himself that this is a very profitable customer, so he must show his sincerity. He starts packing the books. He thinks, I only have 30 copies, and decides to package them, sighing about how a book like this could be printed so many times and put on sale like this. He concludes it is hard to understand the thoughts of the powerful. He then offers her the container of tea as a gift for their first meeting, mentioning that she seemed to really like the taste, and invites her to visit again if she wants more. Lady Silver replies with gratitude for his guidance. She promises that if they ever regain their former glory, the Iris family will gladly act as his lapdog. The rain falls heavily on the ruins of Nakan, where a huge shadow looms over the destruction. A man in a long coat looks on at the scene, showing the massive impact of a recent fight. A man with a stern face complains about the huge destruction caused by those maniacs. He is told by an assistant that The assistant mentions that someone told them not to move around to save any leftover mana traces. This makes the stern man angry, and he shouts that he doesn't care about forensics. The angry man points accusingly, shouting that they let a destructive black mage do whatever they wanted in Nakan. His outburst scares the assistant. He continues to yell, questioning if the magical surveillance network that the Truth Society is so proud of is just a joke. Another person looks down, clearly upset by the situation. One of the younger-looking people expresses a desire to hit someone with a rock if they could beat them. Another person dismisses this idea, saying a destructive rank spell already blasted away that rock, and mentions a former Radiant Knight used to move rocks like that. Despite the anger, one man decides they should cooperate with the current investigators and sort out the mess at the site. He seems to be the leader figure here. The leader asks if the intelligence division has any more reports. The assistant hesitantly says they found out the black mages were actually targeting that bookstore. The leader yells out a firm no. When the assistant suggests they go investigate the bookstore, the assistant looks shocked by his sudden refusal. The assistant stutters that the Truth Society seems to have already taken action regarding the bookstore. The leader's face shows intense focus or anger. The leader screams at them to recall everyone immediately, showing his severe displeasure with the situation. A figure surrounded by purple energy starts performing a spell, calling it magical forensics to locate mana traces. This figure seems to be one of the people being investigated. The destructive spell energy fades away, and the figure comments on how those black mages are truly lunatics for using such a spell in this area. The figure expresses surprise that the magical surveillance network did not detect the destructive rank spell beforehand. The scholar, George Byron, looks grimly at the scene, remarking that the situation looks very bad. George Byron, a 24-year-old Truth Society scholar, notes that the failure of the surveillance network is a huge problem. He points out two possibilities for the failure. He suggests either the black mages knew how to sneak past the network, or there is a spy inside the Truth Society. Byron then complains that he is a civil servant and shouldn't be doing crime scene forensics, as his specialty is alchemy tool logistics. Byron continues his report, noting that the dead include the leader of the Scarlet Cult, Percant Murphy, and some black mages. Judging by the attack method, he starts detailing the likely sequence of events. He explains that this big retaliation by the Scarlet Cult was clearly aimed at something that was stopping their plans, possibly the Secret Instrument Tower or the Truth Society, with whom they often fought. He mentions that the location of the spawn of the magic mirror is still secret because the cultists are careful and teleport away or commit suicide if caught. Another reason for the trouble was Percant Murphy creating many zombies using her coffin of eternal slumber. These numerous, though individually weak, zombies caused a lot of trouble, and the target of this specific attack was a splinter group of the White Wolf called Spider. This spider group had interrupted Ryan's intelligence network and was a major threat to the White Wolf under their new leader Jai Shiksu. Byron concludes that the final battlefield was here, led by Murphy herself, but the unexpected thing was that the top leader was killed in this battle thought to be foolproof. He notes the assault had a clear target, the 23rd Street's bookstore. Byron is confused because the Scarlet Cult usually targets the Secret Instrument Tower and hunters, so he wonders who is inside that bookstore. He then states he is going into the bookstore to investigate. The other members look surprised as Byron heads toward the bookstore, which looks strangely normal amidst the destruction. After entering the bookstore, the scene shifts to the inside, showing tall bookshelves and an empty chair with a sound of a splash. Byron, now inside, seems determined and states he is going into the bookstore looking serious. A hooded figure yells out to wait for Byron, noticing something odd about the bookstore as Byron walks in. Byron observes that the bookstore looks absolutely normal, but he senses a peculiar power within it that seems to attract people. He stands at the entrance, wondering what exactly is inside this bookstore. Mr. Joseph, the stern man from before, grabs someone and yells stop. Joseph angrily asks Byron what he is doing. Byron questions Joseph, saying that's a strange question as his job is to figure out what happened, and the person inside is clearly another person of interest. He states he needs to report back to the Truth Society. Byron then explains that the person inside is another person of interest, and he needs to report to the Truth Society. Joseph looks thoughtful and warns Byron about his sanity if he proceeds. Joseph warns Byron, "For your sanity, don't do it." Byron looks defiant. Byron reacts strongly to the word sanity, questioning if Joseph is doubting the sanity of a scholar of the Truth Society. He insists that knowledge keeps his brain calm and sanity is essential for any scholar. Byron declares he will not be swayed and considers Joseph joking about his sanity an insult to his character, even though Joseph is a respected destructive knight and senior. Byron flashes an intense, almost crazed look, emphasizing that Joseph cannot joke about his sanity. Joseph, annoyed, thinks it's a hassle dealing with such stubborn scholars. Joseph reflects on how hard it is to change the mind of these headstrong people, even considering just punching Byron to stop him. He decides to leave it alone since the secret instrument tower still needs to buy alchemy tools from the Truth Society and will ask Claude to handle it. Joseph mutters about those lunatics, then decides to ask Claude to deal with the bookstore issue, saying it's not his business. The assistant near him sneezes. Byron, surprised, asks if the bookstore is Class I in Nakan. He is told that the secret instrument tower recently classified the area as Class I, but the Truth Society database hasn't been updated yet. Joseph counters that the bookstore owner is helping them and Byron shouldn't be foolish. He then implies that the owner wouldn't like being questioned by Byron. Byron is shocked by this statement, thinking that the Truth Society knows everything in Nakan. He questions why they wouldn't have found a Class I entity right under their noses for so many years, especially since their network was built by the worldly wisdom himself. Byron argues they shouldn't have missed anything in theory, asking if Joseph thinks he is lying. Joseph brings up the destructive spell that happened, which the Truth Society's network missed. Joseph points out that it was only because the bookstore owner stopped the mages that they were saved, noting the secret instrument tower was quicker. He tells the Truth Society team to investigate themselves first. Byron is ready to respond when a bell rings loudly, signaling something. Suddenly, a blur of golden hair rushes past Byron and Joseph, startling them both. Both Byron and Joseph look shocked and confused by the sudden appearance. The focus shifts to a magnificent woman with long golden hair and pointed ears, clearly an elf, dressed in elegant white and gold attire. Byron utters the word "an elf" in surprise as the woman appears outside the bookstore. Byron wonders why an elf would be in Nakan and what her connection is to the bookstore. Joseph looks on, equally perplexed. Byron realizes his earlier suspicion was correct. The bookstore owner is a noble elf. He recalls the elves are a proud and exclusive race, making it nearly impossible for them to associate with humans. He observes that the elf who just exited the bookstore is not only a pureblood but also showed respect toward the bookstore. Byron then starts thinking about returning a book and getting a new owner for Candela. Joseph seems distracted by the powerful presence, perhaps thinking about the situation with the dark sword energy nearby, as Byron concludes his thoughts about returning the book and Candela. The elf addresses Byron directly, calling him human. The elf confronts Byron, demanding to know what he is doing in front of her master's doorstep, holding a staff. Byron is stunned and questions the use of the term master. Byron recalls that, if he is not mistaken, only the 4 primordial witches are considered masters by the elves, making him realize the shocking possibility. He sees a vision of an even more powerful, white-haired elf figure nearby. He thinks it can't be that a bookstore, not even a road away, just happens to have a dream world with the primordial witch inside, right? The white-haired elf's image fades. The golden-haired elf states that her master's favored emissary represents her master's will. She then accuses the Truth Society of becoming more and more insolent. The elf flares up with dark pink energy, questioning if the Truth Society's insolence is due to her master's kindness or if Byron's curiosity has muddled his brain. Her eyes glow red as she looms over Byron, asking if that's why he dares to look at her master. Byron is terrified, seeing the glowing red eyes of the angry elf. Byron screams in fear, realizing his mistake. He regrets ignoring Joseph's advice and entering a Class I area without concern, and now finds himself in a standoff with a destructive elven prophet. Byron is distraught, apologizing and asking what he should do. Joseph quickly steps in to mediate, asking the elven lady to forgive Byron as he was just doing his duty to investigate and report back. Joseph explains that Byron was only trying to do his job, and the elf's master sounds compassionate, as Joseph is sure the master wouldn't mind an inquisitive person. The elf acknowledges Joseph's words but suggests he should be glad she stopped the attackers. She tells them what happened was quite simple. She explains that the black mages suddenly appeared and tried to use a destructive spell called Nova Death Ray on the bookstore and surrounding area, which she stopped by killing them. Joseph accepts this explanation, saying it makes sense as the hatching of the magic mirror spawn was at its final stage, leading to the Scarlet Cult's final celebration. Joseph deduces that the bookstore owner must have done something major against the Scarlet Cult to be targeted, and is pleased that the owner let his subordinate handle the cult leader. He tells the bookstore owner that he has chosen the right side. Joseph asks the elf what she thinks made the cult attack. The elf retorts that she wouldn't know and suggests he ask her instead, explaining she is representing the Iris family and just arrived in Nakan. The elf asks if she shouldn't retaliate in such a situation, adding that her actions also helped stop the brutes. She then complains that instead of gratitude, Joseph is interrogating her, asking if this is how Nakan treats its guests. Joseph admits they are not handling things properly and expresses his utmost gratitude and respect for the bookstore owner, mentioning that the owner once helped him solve a long-standing problem with a book. He adds that if it wasn't for today's incident, he would have visited the owner himself by now. Joseph concludes that now that they know what happened, they can report back, and a relieved Byron smiles, happy the situation is resolved. A phone rings, and Joseph takes a call, thanking the elf for her contribution to Nakan on behalf of the Truth Society. Byron is completely stunned, realizing who he is talking to. Byron explains in shock, realizing the person on the other end is the vice president, as he sees a stack of books titled The Truth Society. Joseph, now speaking on the phone, tells Byron to give the communicator to the great sage of the Iris family. The elf takes the communicator, and as Joseph says, it's been 300 years. How have you been? The elf whispers a name, Joris. The elf, Doris, responds with a shocked Andrew. Her eyes fill with tears as a photograph on the table shows her with a younger-looking man who is likely Andrew, suggesting a long-lost connection between them.